She was going to spend another New Year's Eve alone. 31 years old, no family waiting, no phone buzzing, no champagne on ice, just a frozen dinner and the same silence she'd worn like a second skin her whole life. Lena Carter had made peace with being invisible. Then, 3 minutes before midnight, someone knocked on her door. And standing in the hallway, soaked from the snow, breathless, furious with himself for waiting this long, was the one man she'd spent 2 years pretending not to love. Before we begin, if you believe some nights really can change everything, hit that like button and tell me in the comments which city you're watching from tonight. I want to see how far Lena's story travels. Now stay with me until the very end, because what happens after that knock is a story you won't forget. The radiator in apartment 4B had been clanking since October, and Lena Carter had stopped hearing it somewhere around Thanksgiving. That was the thing about living alone for 11 years. The noises that would drive anyone else insane became company. The tick of the old pipes, the hum of the refrigerator that ran a little too loud, the upstairs neighbor who dropped something heavy every night at 10:47 without fail. Lena could have set a watch by that thud. She stood at the kitchen counter in her socks, staring at a microwave dinner like it had personally offended her. Salisbury steak, mashed potatoes that were somehow both watery and gluey, a brownie square that tasted like it had been manufactured during the Reagan administration. "Happy New Year to me," she muttered, peeling the plastic back too fast. Steam burned her thumb. Perfect. Excellent start. She ran cold water over it and watched the snow fall outside the kitchen window. Big, fat, television movie snow. The kind of snow that made the city look like a postcard and turned the subway into a death trap. 42nd floor apartments in Midtown usually came with a view of something glamorous. The Empire State Building, maybe, or a slice of the park. Lena's window showed her an air shaft and the back of another building where a woman 3 floors down had been decorating her Christmas tree since the day after Halloween. The tree was still up. It would probably be up in June. Lena didn't judge. Her own tree, a 22-inch fake thing from a drugstore, sat on her coffee table with exactly 4 ornaments on it. She'd put them on drunk 2 weeks ago and hadn't touched them since. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She lunged for it before she could stop herself. That was the embarrassing part. The instinctive, hopeful lunge. Like some teenage girl waiting for a boy to text her back. It was a push notification from CVS. "Your prescription is ready for pickup." "Right," she said to the empty kitchen. "Thanks, CVS. Love you too." She set the phone face down and went back to the microwave. The clock on the stove said 9:47 p.m. 2 hours and 13 minutes until the ball dropped. 2 hours and 13 minutes of Ryan Seacrest pretending he was having the time of his life on a freezing rooftop. 2 hours and 13 minutes until another year of her life officially became last year, and a new year of it became this year, and nothing, not one single thing, would actually be different. She was 31 years old. She had $38,000 in savings. She had a job that paid $84,000 a year and a boss who was, according to Business Insider, one of the 50 most powerful men in New York under 40. She had a face that people called pretty when they couldn't think of anything more specific, dark hair that she kept in a low bun at work and let down at home, and eyes that a college boyfriend had once called sad, even when you laugh. She hadn't laughed around him much after that. She'd grown up in foster care in upstate New York. 6 placements between age 7 and 18, one of them decent, 2 of them bad, the rest somewhere in the gray middle where nobody hit you but nobody hugged you either. She'd aged out at 18 with a garbage bag of clothes and a community college acceptance letter, and she'd been building her life by herself ever since. No siblings she knew of. A mother who'd given her up before kindergarten. A father listed as unknown on a birth certificate she'd had to order from Albany when she was 22 because she needed it for a passport she'd never actually used. She made a good chicken noodle soup. She could do a cat eye in under 2 minutes. She'd read 1,247 books since starting her Goodreads account in 2019, which averaged out to depressing when you thought about how she'd gotten the time. And for 2 years, 3 months, and 11 days, if she was being honest, which she usually wasn't, even with herself, she had been in love with a man who didn't know her middle name. Adrian Vale, CEO of Vale Capital. 38 years old, 6'2", broad-shouldered in a way that made his suits look like they'd been sewn onto him by someone who was angry about it. Black hair that he kept a little too long for Wall Street and a little too short for anything else. green eyes the color of bottle glass. A voice that went low and sharp when he was annoyed, and lower and softer when he was tired, which was the voice Lena heard most often, because she was usually the last person in the building with him at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. She was his executive assistant. She had been his executive assistant since October of the year she turned 29, when she'd walked into a glass office on the 38th floor of a building on Park Avenue and watched a man in a charcoal suit look up from his desk and blink, just once, like he was recalibrating. "You're Lena Carter?" he'd said. "Yes, sir." "The agency sent—" He'd stopped, started again. "They said you were experienced. 8 years, 2 law firms, 1 hedge fund. And you want to work for me. I want the salary, sir." He'd almost smiled. She'd watched it happen in the corner of his mouth, the almost. And then he'd gestured at the chair across from him and said, "Sit down, Ms. Carter. Let's see if you can survive me." She'd survived him. 2 years and counting. She'd survived the 5:30 a.m. texts asking where the Henderson file was, the board meetings that ran until midnight, the ex-girlfriend named Serena, who used to call the office phone and cry until Lena hung up on her. The assistant before her, a woman named Brittany, whose name was still on an email thread somewhere in the deleted items folder, who had lasted 4 months and quit in tears. Lena didn't cry at work. Lena didn't cry anywhere, really. She'd had that beaten out of her by circumstance long before Adrian Vale ever walked into her life. What she had done, somewhere in the middle of the second year, was start noticing things. The way he said thank you to the janitor in the lobby every single night. The way he adjusted his cuffs when he was nervous about a meeting, which was almost never, but still. The way he kept a framed picture of his mother on his desk. A woman with laugh lines and a flowered blouse sitting on a porch somewhere in Connecticut. And how he turned it face down on days he had to fire someone, like he didn't want her watching. The way he looked at Lena sometimes when he thought she wasn't paying attention. Lena was always paying attention. The microwave beeped. She pulled the Salisbury steak out and carried it to the couch, where the TV was already on mute, showing a pre-taped segment of some K-pop group Lena couldn't name performing in Times Square. She'd changed into sweatpants and one of his old t-shirts hours ago. Not his. She had to stop that. It was a t-shirt. From Old Navy. She'd bought it herself at a store in Queens 4 years ago. It had absolutely nothing to do with Adrian Vale, except it was gray, and he wore a lot of gray. And last Tuesday, he'd rolled his sleeves up during a late-night conference call, and she'd seen the veins in his forearms and had to go reorganize the supply closet for 20 minutes to get her face back under control. She shoveled in a bite of potatoes. "Get a grip, Carter." The TV cut to Times Square. A sea of people in puffy coats waving light-up wands, freezing their faces off for a 4-second glimpse of a disco ball. Her phone buzzed again, and her stomach jumped again, and she hated herself just a little for the jump. It was Marjorie, the receptionist from the 42nd floor, a group text to the entire admin pool. "Happy New Year, girlies, stay safe out there, my love. Sus." Lena stared at it. The admin pool group chat had 17 people in it. Lena had never once sent a message to it. She'd been added 18 months ago when she joined the company health plan, and she'd considered muting it approximately 40 times a week ever since. One by one, the responses started rolling in. "OMG Mard. You too. At the Jersey Shore bar with my boy. Happy New Year. Everyone, Times Square. Baby on my 3rd margarita. Don't judge me. Kissed my husband at 8 p.m. BC. Baby. Bedtime is 9. LOL. Lena watched the screen fill with other people's lives, other people's laughter, other people's warm apartments full of warm people who knew them. She did not respond. She set the phone face down again and picked up the remote and unmuted the TV, just for the noise, just for the pretend company. A commercial came on. A family, a golden retriever, a Subaru. The mother was laughing at something the dad said. The kids were in the back seat making faces at each other. Lena's throat got tight. "No," she said out loud. "Nope, we're not doing that tonight." She muted it again. At 10:14 p.m., she gave up on the Salisbury steak. She carried it to the trash can in the kitchen and dumped it in, plastic tray and all. Then she opened the cabinet above the refrigerator and took down the bottle of champagne she'd bought at the bodega on the corner 2 weeks ago. It was the cheap stuff, $12. She'd bought it because the checkout guy, Hamid, had smiled at her and said, "For the party, yes?" And she hadn't had the heart to say there was no party, there had never been a party, there would never be a party, so she'd said, "Yes, for the party," and paid with her debit card and walked home through the slush, pretending she had somewhere to be. She was going to open it alone, at midnight, and drink it alone, out of a coffee mug, because all of her champagne flutes had broken somewhere between the move from Astoria and the move to Midtown, and she'd never bothered to replace them because who was she replacing them for? It was the saddest plan a human being had ever made. She was aware of this. She was choosing it anyway. She set the champagne on the counter to breathe, or chill, or whatever champagne needed to do. She wasn't sure. She hadn't asked Hamid. And then her phone buzzed. A real buzz. The long single buzz that meant a text message, not a push notification. She didn't lunge this time. She was learning. She walked to the counter slowly, like she didn't care, like she was barely curious, and she flipped the phone over. She stopped breathing. Adrian Vale, 10:17 p.m. Are you awake? She stared at the screen until it dimmed. She tapped it to keep it alive. 3 words. Are you awake? 3 words from Adrian Vale at 10:17 p.m. on New Year's Eve. Her first thought, her first professional trained reflexive thought, was, something went wrong with the Morrison deal and I'm going to have to email Tokyo. Her second thought, the one she'd been trying not to have for 2 years, was, please, please, please. She hated her second thought. She typed with careful fingers. Yes, Mr. Vale, do you need something? She watched the 3 dots appear. Disappear. Appear again. Adrian Vale, 10:18 p.m. You don't have to call me Mr. Vale over text on New Year's Eve, Lena. She sat down on the kitchen floor. She didn't plan to. Her legs just stopped working the way legs were supposed to, and she slid down the cabinet and sat there in her socks on the cold linoleum, staring at her phone. Okay, she typed. She deleted it. Adrian, she typed. She deleted it. What can I help you with, she typed. She deleted it. The 3 dots appeared again on his side. Adrian Vale, 10:19 p.m. I'm sorry, that was weird. I'm at an event and I'm losing my mind. Please ignore me. She laughed. Out loud. Alone on the kitchen floor. A short, surprised laugh that sounded nothing like her. Her fingers started typing before her brain caught up. What kind of event? She sent it before she could delete it. And then she held her breath. The dots appeared immediately. Adrian Vale, 10:20 p.m. The Whitestone Gala. Black tie. 400 people. Open bar. Live string quartet. Caviar on tiny little toast points that I can't bring myself to eat because they look like ears. Sorry. I might be drunk. Lena pressed her hand over her mouth. The Whitestone Gala. She had scheduled it for him 3 weeks ago. She had RSVP'd on his behalf. She had picked up his dry cleaning that afternoon and laid it out in garment bags in his office because his housekeeper was on vacation and he'd asked her to, and she had specifically chosen the black tie with the subtle silver pattern over the plain black one because it went better with his eyes. She had not told him that last part. She typed, "You're not drunk? You're bored." Adrian Vale, 10:21 p.m. How can you tell? Because you wrote 3 complete sentences with punctuation. Drunk Adrian writes in fragments. There was a long pause, long enough that she worried she'd gone too far, crossed some line, been too casual, too weird, too... Lena. Then, Adrian Vale, 10:22 p.m. Drunk Adrian? She stared at the screen, heart rabbiting in her chest. Sorry. I see your texts at 2 a.m. sometimes. When the Japan calls go long. Adrian Vale, 10:23 p.m. Ah, fair. You're right. I'm bored. I'm so bored I could die. Where are you? She looked around her kitchen, at the trashed Salisbury steak tray, at the $12 champagne, at her socks, one of which had a hole in the big toe. Home, she typed. Alone? She closed her eyes. Yes. The 3 dots started. Stopped. Started again. Stopped. A minute passed. 2. She thought, I've done it. I've made it weird. I've made him feel sorry for me. Tomorrow he's going to come into the office on January 2nd, and he's going to look at me like I'm his lonely assistant, and he's going to be kind to me, and I will die. I will actually die. I will walk into the Hudson in my pea coat. Then, Adrian Vale, 10:26 p.m. Can I be honest about something? Her mouth went dry. Yes. Adrian Vale, 10:26 p.m. I've been texting you for 9 minutes, and it's the best time I've had all night. But she dropped the phone. She actually dropped it. It bounced off her thigh and skidded across the linoleum and slid under the refrigerator. And Lena Carter, who did not panic, scrambled across the kitchen floor like a cartoon character and yanked it back out by the charging cord, which she had left plugged in for some reason, which she thanked every saint she didn't believe in that she had left plugged in. Her hands were shaking. Lena, she told herself. Lena, Lena, Lena. This is a man at an event full of models and senators and tech billionaires, and he's bored. And he's texting his assistant because she's the only person in his phone who isn't trying to get something from him. That's it. That is it. Do not make this into something it isn't. But the phone was in her hand, and her thumbs were already moving. The best time? Adrian, there are literal supermodels at the Whitestone Gala. Adrian Vale, 10:28 p.m. Are there? I hadn't noticed. She pressed her forehead against the cabinet door. Okay, she typed. Now I know you're drunk. Adrian Vale, 10:29 p.m. I had half a glass of champagne at 8 and a whiskey at 9:30. I'm not drunk. I'm honest. They're different things and people confuse them all the time. What are you doing? She looked around. The dim kitchen, the dead microwave, the snow outside the window. She considered lying. She didn't. Sitting on the floor, eating bad potatoes, watching Ryan Seacrest on mute. Adrian Vale, 10:30 p.m. That sounds better than where I am. It really isn't. Adrian Vale, 10:30 p.m. Try me. She closed her eyes. And she thought, not for the first time, but harder than she'd ever let herself think it before, about how she had no idea what this man actually wanted. About how every late-night email, every time he'd looked at her a second too long in the hallway, every time he'd said her name the way he said her name, she had told herself, stop, not for you. He's being kind. He's being a decent boss. He's being a human being who is polite to his staff. She had told herself that for 2 years. And tonight, a man who could be anywhere in the world, with anyone in the world, was sitting at a table at the Whitestone Gala texting her about toast points. She typed, I bought a bottle of $12 champagne 2 weeks ago. I was going to drink it alone at midnight out of a coffee mug. I don't have champagne flutes. They broke when I moved. My microwave dinner tasted like cardboard and I threw it away. I haven't spoken out loud to another human being since yesterday at the deli. I'm wearing sweatpants and a shirt that has a stain on it that I can't identify. I'm sorry. You didn't ask for that. I don't know why She sent it before she could delete any of it, and immediately she wanted to die. She wanted the floor of the kitchen to open up and swallow her. She wanted a meteor to hit Manhattan, specifically this building, specifically this apartment. Adrian Vale, 10:33 p.m. Lena, just her name. Nothing else. And then a second later, Adrian Vale, 10:33 p.m. I haven't eaten anything all night because every time I try, someone drags me somewhere to meet someone whose name I forget immediately. The last real conversation I had was with you on Wednesday when you told me my tie was crooked and you fixed it. I've been thinking about that for 3 days. She stopped breathing. She wrote back, You've been thinking about me fixing your tie for 3 days? Adrian Vale, 10:34 p.m. Yes. In the apartment above her, someone started playing music. A muffled bass line, a woman's voice. Probably a party. She could hear footsteps moving around, laughter, the thump of people dancing in a small space. Lena stared at the ceiling. Then she stared at her phone. Why? She typed, and then deleted it. I don't understand, she typed, and then deleted it. Adrian, she typed, what are we doing? She stared at the question. It was the question. It was the only question. She held her thumb over the send button for a long time. She did not send it. Instead, she typed, Your tie was very crooked. Someone had to. Adrian Vale, 10:36 p.m. It wasn't that crooked, it was a little crooked. You could have told me from your desk, but you walked over and fixed it yourself. You stood very close. I could smell your shampoo. Lena's stomach dropped out through the floor. Through the ceiling of apartment 3B, through every floor of the building, down to the basement, down into the subway tunnels under Lexington Avenue. She typed, fingers shaking, "Adrian, you shouldn't be telling me that." The three dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared. Adrian Vale, 10:38 p.m. You're right, I know. I'm sorry. Forget I said it. Please. I'm going to go find a wall to stand against and remember I have a job. Then silence. She waited. For 5 minutes she waited. For 10 minutes she waited. At 10:48, no more dots. No more messages. The radiator clanked. The party upstairs got louder. A single thud. Probably her upstairs neighbor dropping the same mystery object he dropped every night, except tonight, an hour early. Lena sat on the kitchen floor and started crying. She didn't make noise. She didn't sob. She just sat there and let the tears run down into her collar, into her t-shirt, into the hole in her sock, and she thought, well, there it is. There's the thing. You finally heard it. He noticed you. He's been noticing you. He said it out loud. And now he's scared because he's not supposed to have said it. And he's going to come into the office on Monday and pretend he never said it, and you are going to pretend he never said it. And it is going to be worse than if he'd never said it at all. She hated herself for typing back. She hated herself for not typing back more. She hated herself for being 31 years old and crying on her kitchen floor on New Year's Eve because a man she worked for said he liked her shampoo. She picked up her phone. She typed, "I could smell yours too. It's the cedar one. The one from the place on Madison. You've been using it since July." She held her thumb over send. She closed her eyes. She sent it. Nothing. For a full 4 minutes, nothing. She pulled herself up off the floor. She washed her face at the kitchen sink with cold water and the ancient bar of hand soap she kept by the faucet. She dried off with a dish towel and looked at her reflection in the dark kitchen window and whispered, "You are a grown woman. You are a grown woman. You are a grown woman." Her phone buzzed. Adrian Vale, 10:53 p.m. Since May, actually. "I bought it because you told Marjorie you liked the way the guys at the Madison Avenue barbershop smelled. You didn't know I was in the coffee room. I wasn't supposed to hear it. I bought it the next day." Lena sat down on the kitchen floor again. There was no other option. There was no world in which her legs were going to keep holding her up. She wrote, "Adrian," just his name. "Adrian Vale, 10:54 p.m. I know. I'm going to stop. I'm going to delete all of this. I'm going to go back into that stupid ballroom, and I'm going to toast with people I don't like, and I'm going to come into work on Monday, and I'm going to be your boss, and I'm going to be professional, and I'm never going to mention any of this ever again because you work for me, and I will not be that man. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Happy New Year, Lena." And then the one that finished her, Adrian Vale, 10:55 p.m. "I wish I were there." She read it 4 times. I wish I were there. Not, "I wish you were here." Not, "I wish we were together." Not any of the things a man who wanted a night with his assistant might say to get something. I wish I were there. In her apartment, with her bad microwave dinner, with her $12 champagne and her hole-in-the-toe socks and her fake Christmas tree with 4 ornaments. That was where he wished he was. Lena looked around her kitchen, at her life, at the scraped-together, careful, quiet life she had built by herself out of stubbornness and low expectations. And she did something she had not done in 2 years and 3 months and 11 days of working for Adrian Vale. She typed, "Then come." She stared at it. She thought, he won't. Of course he won't. He's at a gala. He's in a tuxedo. It's a blizzard outside. He's the CEO of a $3 billion firm. He's not going to leave the Whitestone Gala on New Year's Eve and come to Hell's Kitchen because his assistant is sad. She thought, but maybe, just this once, let me ask for something. Let me ask one time in my entire life for a thing I want. Let me be the kind of woman who asks. She pressed send. Then, horrified, she put the phone face down on the linoleum and walked away from it, into the living room. She didn't look at the TV. She didn't look at the snow. She went and stood in the middle of her own carpet and pressed her hands over her face and breathed. In, out, in, out. Her phone buzzed. She didn't move. She was fairly sure never going to move again. It buzzed a second time, a third. She walked back to the kitchen on unsteady legs. She bent down. She picked it up. Adrian Vale, 10:58 p.m. What's your address? Adrian Vale, 10:58 p.m. Lena, what's your address? Adrian Vale, 10:59 p.m. I'm already in the car. Her hands would not work. She couldn't remember her own address. For a full terrifying 10 seconds, Lena Carter, who could recite 17 federal tax ID numbers from memory, who could spell Deutsche Börse while being yelled at in 2 languages, could not remember the number of the building she lived in. Then she did. She typed it. She sent it. She stared at her phone. Adrian Vale, 11:01 p.m. 45 minutes. Traffic is bad. I'm coming. Adrian Vale, 11:02 p.m. Don't change your mind. Adrian Vale, 11:02 p.m. Please don't change your mind. She sat on the floor with the phone in her hand and she read those 3 messages over and over and over again. Don't change your mind. Please don't change your mind. For the first time in her 31 years of life, someone was driving through a snowstorm to get to her. Someone was leaving a ballroom full of 400 important people because Lena Carter of 4B had asked him to. She stood up. She walked into her tiny bathroom and she looked at herself in the mirror. And she saw a woman with red eyes and a t-shirt with an unidentifiable stain, and she said out loud, "Oh, absolutely not." She turned on the shower. She had 45 minutes. 45 minutes to scrub her face and put on something that wasn't sweatpants and figure out how to breathe like a person whose lungs knew what they were doing. 45 minutes to decide whether she was going to open the door when he knocked or whether she was going to pretend she wasn't home and spend the rest of her life in a convent. 45 minutes, 3 minutes before midnight. A knock at the door. The snow falling outside her window like the whole city had agreed just this once to stage something beautiful. And a man she had loved for 2 years, 3 months, and 11 days, standing in the hallway of her building in a ruined tuxedo, soaked through, breathing hard, about to change every single thing about Lena Carter's life. But that was still 45 minutes away. Right now, she just had to make it that far. She stepped under the hot water, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, she laughed out loud in her own apartment. The hot water hit her skin and she forgot how to stand up straight. Lena leaned her forehead against the tile and tried to do the math on a body that had, in the last 15 minutes, gone from flatline loneliness to whatever this was. Her knees were trembling, actually trembling. She had never understood that phrase before tonight. Her knees went weak. She had always thought it was something romance novelists made up because they couldn't think of anything better to do with a woman's legs. But there she was, a grown woman in a shower in Hell's Kitchen, holding on to the soap shelf like it was the railing of a ship. "Okay," she said to the water. "Okay, okay, okay." She scrubbed her face twice. She washed her hair. She used the good conditioner, the one she had bought at Sephora 6 months ago and rationed like it was wartime. She shaved her legs, and then she laughed at herself for shaving her legs. And then she kept shaving her legs because what was the alternative? Meeting Adrian Vale at the door of her apartment with furry shins like some kind of raccoon person. No thank you. Not tonight. She got out of the shower at 11:09. She had 51 minutes, maybe less if the traffic broke in his favor, and she stood naked in the bathroom fog staring at her own reflection and realizing she did not know what women were supposed to wear when a man showed up at their door on New Year's Eve because they had invited him. Jeans? That seemed too casual. A dress? In her own apartment? That seemed insane. She had one nice dress that she had worn to a wedding 3 years ago. A wedding of a college acquaintance who had died. Not really died, just unfriended her on Facebook eventually. And the dress was too summery and too green and too trying. Pajamas? She could wear pajamas. That would say, "I'm not performing for you." It would say, "This is who I am." It would also say, "I'm a woman who answered the door in pajamas," which was, for reasons she could not fully articulate, worse. She ended up in jeans, the dark ones, The ones that a guy at work, Marcus from IT, who had a very bad wife and a very good eye for denim, had once told her made her look like she had, quote, an actual butt for once, Lena. I'm not being weird, I'm just saying. She had been mildly offended for about 10 seconds, and then she had started wearing those jeans to work every Friday. Tonight was Wednesday. New Year's Eve fell on a Wednesday this year, which Lena had been resenting for weeks, because at least a weekend ruined wouldn't have felt so pointed. She put on the jeans anyway, a soft black sweater, the one with the neckline that slipped off one shoulder when she wasn't careful, because she wasn't going to be careful tonight. Not at 11 o'clock at night in her own apartment with her own dignity. And if she was going to let Adrian Vale drive across Manhattan in a blizzard to sit on her couch, she was at least going to do it with one collarbone showing. Her hair was still damp. She didn't have time to dry it. She ran her fingers through it and it fell in dark waves down her back, almost to her elbows. And she looked in the mirror and thought, who is that woman? Because she didn't recognize her. Not the hair, not the flush in her cheeks, not the eyes, which were wide and scared and awake, more awake than they had been in 10 years. She went back to the kitchen. The $12 champagne was still on the counter. She stared at it like it had betrayed her personally. $12. She had bought a $12 bottle of champagne for the night Adrian Vale came over. This was a fact. This was her life now. She opened the fridge and she looked for something, anything, to redeem herself, and found half a lemon, a jar of pickles, 3 eggs, a takeout container of pad thai from the previous Friday, and a block of cheese that had, by now, developed a personality. Oh God, she said, and then she laughed, a short, miserable laugh, because this was what she had invited a man to. Pickles. A personality cheese. Bodega champagne. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Adrian Vale, 11:14 p.m. We just hit 5th Avenue. Cross streets are a nightmare. I'm okay. Are you okay? She stared at "Are you okay?" at the period instead of the question mark. It read like the kind of thing a man texted when he wasn't sure if he was asking or telling. She typed, I'm okay. I'm a little scared. She deleted a little. I'm okay. I'm scared. She sent it before she could take it back. Adrian Vale, 11:15 p.m. Me too. Adrian Vale, 11:15 p.m. Tell me if you want me to turn around. I'll turn around. She looked at the champagne. She looked at the snow. She looked at the tiny fake Christmas tree with its 4 lonely ornaments. She thought about every New Year's Eve she had ever spent alone. The one in the basement apartment in Astoria where the heat didn't work and she slept in her coat. The one in the foster home when she was 14 and Mrs. Halloran had gone to bed at 9 and Lena had watched the ball drop by herself in a living room that smelled like cat food. The one 3 years ago where she had gotten drunk enough on cheap wine to text a man she had dated twice in 2019 and he had not texted her back. Ever. Not that night, not the next day, not in his entire life. She typed, don't turn around. Then, please. Then, I want you to come. She pressed send and put the phone face down on the counter and walked in a full circle around her coffee table, twice, because she didn't know what else to do with her body. The TV was still on mute. Ryan Seacrest was doing something in Times Square, gesturing at a crowd, his mouth moving soundlessly. The ticker at the bottom said 45 minutes to midnight. 44. 43. She started cleaning. She didn't know why. There was nothing to clean. Her apartment was already clean. Lena Carter did not live in filth. Lena Carter was a woman who swiffered the baseboards every other Sunday. But she started anyway. She picked up the remote and put it on its little shelf. She folded the throw blanket on the arm of the couch. She plumped the 2 pillows she owned because she was a single woman who lived alone. She had no reason to own more than 2 throw pillows. And she stood back and looked at her small brown couch and thought it looked like a couch that had never, in its 3 years of service, had 2 people sit on it at the same time. It hadn't. That was accurate. She lit a candle, the one she kept in the kitchen for power outages. It smelled like eucalyptus, which she hoped was sophisticated and not like a spa. She was never sure. She lit a second candle on the coffee table. The apartment started to look, she admitted it, grudgingly, nice, soft, warm, like the kind of place where a person lived a life. Her phone buzzed. Adrian Vale, 11:22 p.m. We just passed the park. She wrote back. How's the traffic? Adrian Vale, 11:22 p.m. Biblical. Don't worry, Luis is the best driver in the city. Adrian Vale, 11:23 p.m. Luis, say hi. There was a pause, and then a new message that was clearly typed by someone else, because the capitalization was all over the place and there were two typos. Hi, Miss Lena. Happy New Year. I have him in the car. I will bring him safely. Lena pressed her hand to her mouth. She was not going to cry. She was absolutely not going to cry over a text message from a driver named Luis. She typed, "Thank you, Luis. Happy New Year. Please drive carefully." Adrian Vale, 11:24 p.m. He says thank you. He also says he's been driving me for 6 years and he's never driven me anywhere on New Year's Eve after 10 p.m. He says I'm, quote, in deep, sir. He's not wrong. She read it 3 times. He's not wrong. She set the phone down very gently, like it was made of glass, like if she dropped it the whole night would shatter, and she would wake up on her kitchen floor with a cold Salisbury steak in her lap, and no one coming for her, and the TV still on mute. She went into the bathroom. She looked at herself again. She put on mascara. She put on a little bit of the lipstick she had bought at Duane Reade 8 months ago and used exactly once for a dinner with a coworker named Priya who had moved to California in March. The lipstick was called Quiet Rose, which was a stupid name for a lipstick, but it looked nice on her. It made her mouth look like a mouth. She pressed her lips together. She blew out a long breath. In the mirror, behind her shoulder, she could see the tiny fake Christmas tree on the coffee table. She went back out into the living room and she looked at that tree, and she thought, this is the tree he is going to see. This tree, with its 4 ornaments, with its cheap plastic branches. This is the tree of the woman he is driving through a blizzard to sit with. She knelt down and opened the box on the floor next to the coffee table, the box she had been too tired to deal with 2 weeks ago, the box full of the rest of her ornaments. She started hanging them on the tree. She didn't know why. It was something to do with her hands. There were little glass balls her old coworker had given her when she left the hedge fund, and a tiny wooden ice skater from a Christmas market in Bryant Park 4 years ago, and a star that she had made out of popsicle sticks when she was 9 years old in the one foster placement that had been decent in an arts and crafts class taught by a woman named Mrs. Mendez, who had hugged Lena on her way out the door every day and said, "You're such a good girl, mija." Lena had kept the star for 22 years. She did not let herself think about why. When she was done, the tree was a little too full, top-heavy, lopsided. She sat back on her heels and looked at it. It looked like a Christmas tree that belonged to somebody who was trying. She wiped her eyes with the back of her wrist, and she looked at the clock. 11:34, 26 minutes. Her phone buzzed. Adrian Vale, 11:34 p.m. Lena, I need to tell you something before I get there. She froze. Okay. Adrian Vale, 11:35 p.m. I've been sitting in this car rehearsing it for 10 blocks and none of it sounds right, so I'm just going to say it badly. Adrian Vale, 11:35 p.m. This isn't a one-night thing. That's not why I'm coming. Adrian Vale, 11:35 p.m. I don't know exactly what I'm going to say when I get to your door. I haven't figured that out yet. But I want you to know, before I knock, that this, whatever this is, I mean it. I'm not going to wake up tomorrow and pretend it didn't happen. I'm not going to come into the office on Monday and be weird, unless you want me to be weird. In which case, I will respect whatever you want, and I will find you a new assignment with a boss who isn't a lunatic. But I'm not doing this because I'm bored at a gala. Adrian Vale, 11:36 p.m. I've been a mess about you for a long time. I thought you should know. Adrian Vale, 11:36 p.m. I'm sorry. I know this is a lot to read on the floor of your kitchen. She laughed. Out loud. A real one, wet and surprised. How did you know I was on the floor of my kitchen? Adrian Vale, 11:37 p.m. Lucky guess. Adrian Vale, 11:37 p.m. Also, you told me earlier, she sat down on the arm of the couch because her legs were doing the weak thing again, and she typed slowly, and she meant every word. Adrian, I need to tell you something too. I have been in love with you for 2 years. I don't know if that helps or makes everything worse, but you should know, before you knock. She stared at what she had written. She had never said it out loud to herself in those exact words. I have been in love with you. She had danced around it. She had told herself it was a crush. She had told herself it was circumstantial, proximity, the fact that he was tall and handsome and kind to the janitor. She had told herself every lie a woman tells herself to keep her heart safe in the corner of a room. She sent it. The 3 dots appeared. They appeared for a long time. Her phone buzzed. Adrian Vale, 11:39 p.m. Lena. Adrian Vale, 11:39 p.m. Oh, Lena. Adrian Vale, 11:40 p.m. I'm 12 minutes away. She stood up from the arm of the couch. She went to the kitchen. She took the $12 champagne out and she put it in the freezer because she had forgotten to chill it earlier, because she had been busy sobbing on her kitchen floor and shaving her legs and lighting candles like a woman in a romantic comedy. She ran a hand through her damp hair. She looked at her reflection in the black kitchen window. She didn't recognize the woman in the glass. The woman in the glass was smiling. At 11:45, she walked to the door and she stood in front of it, looking at it like it was something that might open on its own. The peephole was at eye level. She stared through it at the empty hallway. Fluorescent lighting, brown carpet, a cheap framed poster of the Brooklyn Bridge that had hung there since she moved in. The hallway had never looked like a place anything important was going to happen. It looked like a hallway. Her phone buzzed. Adrian Vale, 11:47 p.m. We just pulled up. I'm coming up. She pressed her forehead against the door. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. She heard the elevator ding, distant, down the hall. Her apartment was the 4th one from the elevator, and the carpet was thick, and she couldn't hear footsteps, but she knew. She knew he was walking down that hallway, in a tuxedo, in the snow, dripping on the brown carpet, passing the cheap frame poster of the Brooklyn Bridge. Her hand was on the doorknob before he knocked. He knocked. 3 knocks. Hard. Sure. And then a pause, and then a 4th knock that was softer, almost apologetic, like he had caught himself being too sure and wanted to dial it down. She opened the door. Adrian Vale was standing in the hallway. His tuxedo jacket was open and unbuttoned. His bow tie was hanging loose around his neck, undone. His white shirt was soaked at the shoulders and the chest where the snow had melted through his coat, which he was carrying in one hand, bunched up and dripping on the carpet. His hair was wet and messy and pushed back from his forehead. His cheeks were red from the cold. He was breathing hard. He looked at her. His eyes went over her once, slow, like he was making sure she was real. The damp hair, the soft black sweater, the jeans, the lipstick, the bare feet. The hole-in-the-toe socks had been a casualty of the shower, and she had gone with nothing at all, which she now regretted. She was not sure why. Hi, he said. His voice was rough. Hi, she said. Neither of them moved. He said. I had a whole speech. Okay. I practiced it in the car. Okay. I have forgotten every word. She laughed. It came out shaky. You're dripping on my carpet, Mr. Vale. His mouth twitched. I'm sorry. Come in. He came in. She closed the door behind him and she leaned back against it because her knees were doing the thing again, and she watched Adrian Vale, her boss, the man who had fired 2 traitors last Tuesday without blinking, stand in the middle of her small living room in a wet tuxedo and look at her Christmas tree. You, he said, have the ugliest Christmas tree I have ever seen. I know. It's 22 inches tall. I know. Why do you have so many ornaments on a 22-inch tree? I was nervous, like... He turned to look at her. You hung ornaments on a tree because you were nervous about me coming over. Yes. He was quiet for a second. Then he said, very softly, Lana, don't. Don't what? Don't look at me like that. I'll cry. I'm already barely holding it together, and if you look at me like that, I'm going to cry, and I'm wearing mascara for the first time in 2 weeks, and it's not waterproof. He laughed. A surprised, real full-body laugh. He dropped his wet coat on the floor, just dropped it, like a man who had never dropped a coat on a floor in his life, like a man who had always folded his coat or handed it to someone. And he stepped toward her, and then he stopped. Can I? He said. You can. I don't know what I was going to ask yet. Whatever it is, you can. He crossed the room in 3 steps. He didn't kiss her. That was what she had been bracing for, and it didn't come. Instead, he stopped a foot away from her, close enough that she could smell him, cedar and snow and cold. And he lifted one hand and put it gently, carefully, against the side of her face. His palm was freezing. She flinched, and then she didn't, and she leaned into it, and he made a small sound, low in his throat, like he had been holding his breath and didn't know it. "You cut your hair," he said, 2 weeks ago. "I noticed." "I know." "You know?" "You looked at my hair for a long time on Thursday. You didn't say anything. I thought you hated it." I couldn't figure out how to say I liked it without sounding insane. "You wouldn't have sounded insane. I would have sounded like a man who was very attentive to his assistant's hair." "Well," she said. "Yes, that." They stared at each other. His hand was still on her face. "Adrian," she said. "Yes." "This really happening?" "Yes." "Say something so I know I'm not dreaming." "If you were dreaming," he said, "I would be in a much better tuxedo. This one is ruined. There was a dog at the coat check that got out of someone's purse and ran through a puddle, and the staff threw a towel on my coat that was, in hindsight, wetter than the puddle. Then I got in the car, and Luis had the heat on too high, and I was sweating by 63rd Street. And now I'm cold again, and my shirt is sticking to my back, and I have been since approximately 10:17 p.m., the least composed I have ever been in my adult life. Does that help?" She laughed. "A little." "I have more if you need it." "Go." I rehearsed 4 different speeches on the way over. One was formal, one was a joke, one was... I don't know what it was. Poetry, maybe. It was bad. The 4th one was just your name over and over because I couldn't think of anything else. "Which one did you pick?" "None of them," he said. "I saw your face." She closed her eyes. His hand moved, barely. His thumb skimmed her cheekbone. She felt it like a struck match. "Lena," he said, "I want to tell you I've been thinking about you for 2 years. I want to tell you I've replayed every single conversation we've ever had. I want to tell you I know the sound of your laugh, and I know which days you have trouble sleeping because your eyes get a certain way, and I know you take your coffee with cream, but only if it's real cream, not the powdered kind, and I know you always double-check my schedule before you leave, even though you don't have to. And I know that once, 9 months ago, I caught you crying in the supply closet, and you pretended you were fine, and I walked away because I thought that was what you wanted, but I have regretted it every single day since because I should have asked if you were okay. I should have stayed. I should have... Adrian? I know. I'm doing it again. Kiss me." He went still. "Are you sure?" he said. "I've never been more sure of anything in my whole life." He kissed her. He kissed her like a man who had waited 2 years to do it. He kissed her slow first, with both his cold hands on her face, and she made a small sound against his mouth that she was going to be embarrassed about later. And then he stopped kissing her slow, and he kissed her like a man who had forgotten there was anything else in the world but her mouth. She was pressed against the door. One of his hands had moved to the back of her neck, under her damp hair, and the other was at her waist. And her hands... She didn't know where her hands were until she realized they were fisted in the front of his wet shirt, holding on like she was drowning. He pulled back, just barely, his forehead pressed against hers. "Lena." "Yeah." "I'm getting snow all over your sweater." "I don't care." "I should apologize for something." "What?" "I didn't bring champagne. I was going to. I was going to stop at a store and buy champagne. Luis drove past 3 stores, and I kept saying, 'The next one,' and then we were at your block and I hadn't bought anything. And I am showing up at your apartment on New Year's Eve empty-handed like I have champagne." "You have champagne? It's $12 and it's in the freezer. I forgot to chill it." He laughed. She could feel it in his chest, against her hands. "Perfect," he said. "That's perfect." He pulled back far enough to look at her face again. I'm Adrian." "Lena." "It's nice to meet you, Lena." "It's nice to meet you, Adrian." She didn't know when she had started crying, but she was crying, and he touched the wet under her eye with his thumb, very gently, and he said, "Don't. Please don't. I can't stand it." "I'm not sad." I know. It's the opposite. I know. He kissed her forehead, then her temple, then the bridge of her nose, then her jaw. He was counting, she thought dimly. He was kissing her face like there was a list and he had to get through it or the world would end. Somewhere, distantly, she became aware of sound. The TV was still on mute in the background, but outside the window, in the hallway, down in the street, from the apartment upstairs and across the air shaft and all, up and down 48th Street, the noise was starting. A cheer, maybe. Horns. Someone blowing a party whistle. A countdown. She pulled back. She looked over his shoulder at the TV. Adrian. It's almost midnight. He turned his head. He looked at the TV. The clock on the screen said 11:59:43. Oh, he said. He turned back to her. I almost didn't make it. You made it. 15 seconds to spare. 14. They stood there, in her small living room, in front of her lopsided Christmas tree, in a ruined tuxedo and a black sweater falling off one shoulder. Outside, the whole city was counting down. Lena, he said. Yeah, I know this is fast. I know I just showed up at your door. I know I'm your boss. I know there are going to be 40 things in the way of this. I know tomorrow morning is going to be complicated and Monday is going to be worse. I know. But I'm not walking away from this. Do you understand? Whatever they throw at us, I'm not walking away. I'm not either. Promise me. I promise. Say it. I promise I won't walk away. He nodded, slow, like he was sealing it. Then his mouth came back to hers. Outside, somewhere on a freezing rooftop, Ryan Seacrest was shouting numbers at a crowd that couldn't feel its fingers. 6, 5, 4. She wasn't counting. She hadn't counted since the moment his hand had touched her face. 3, 2, 1. Somewhere, a ball dropped. Somewhere, a city roared. Somewhere, 400 people in a ballroom at the Whitestone Gala clinked glasses of actual, not $12 champagne, and did not notice that Adrian Vale's seat at table 4 was empty, and did not notice that the man they had been whispering about all night, the most eligible bachelor in Manhattan, the one every mother with a daughter had been maneuvering toward all evening, had left his wet coat in a heap on some assistant's floor, and was, at that exact moment, kissing a woman he had been in love with for 2 years and 3 months and 11 days, against the inside of a cheap apartment door on 48th Street. And Lena Carter, who for every new year of her 31 years of life had been alone, had the strange, impossible, ringing thought that she had never been in a room with another human being at midnight on the 1st of January. Not once. Not ever. Until tonight. She made a small sound, and she didn't know if it was a laugh or a sob, and Adrian pulled back and looked at her, and he said, What? What is it? Happy New Year, she said. His face did something. It did the thing she had only ever seen it do once before, when his mother had called him on his birthday in October, and he had stood at the window of his office with his back to her, and she had seen his shoulders drop about 2 inches before he answered the phone. His face did that thing. It dropped its guard. It became young and soft and a little bit broken and a little bit new. Happy New Year, Lena, he said, and then he kissed her again. And she didn't know how long it had been since she had felt warm, actually warm, all the way through. Probably since Mrs. Mendez had hugged her at the end of arts and crafts class 22 years ago. But she felt warm now. She felt warm now, and she would feel warm for a long time, and it was a Wednesday, and it was 12:02 in the morning on the first day of a new year, and the radiator was clanking, and the upstairs neighbor was playing music she couldn't identify, and someone in the hallway was laughing at a joke she couldn't hear. At 12:11 a.m., she made him sit down. He was shivering. She hadn't noticed through everything else, through the kissing, through the shaking, through her own wringing head, but his shirt was still wet, and his hands were still cold, and the tips of his ears were pink in a way that suggested he had been outside for longer than he should have been. Sit, she said. I'm fine. You're blue. Sit. I'll find you something. Lena, I don't... Sit. He sat. On her small brown couch, in a wet tuxedo. He looked absurd. He looked like a magazine shoot that had gone wrong. He also looked, She registered with a shock that was going to sit with her for days, happy. She had not known his face could look like that. She had seen it do satisfied and amused and approving, and once a kind of proud when she had caught a wire transfer error that would have cost the firm $200,000. But she had never seen Adrian Vale look like the look on his face right now, which was the look of a man who had walked into a room he had been locked out of for a very long time. She went to her bedroom. She had nothing that would fit him. She was a 5'5" woman. He was 6'2". She dug in a drawer and pulled out a gray sweatshirt that said Columbia on it, which she had bought from a thrift store in Brooklyn 3 years ago, which was 3 sizes too big for her because she had bought it 3 sizes too big on purpose, for sleeping, for being alone, for the kind of comfort that had nothing to do with fitting. She brought it out to him. Here. He looked at it. He looked at her. You went to Columbia? No, I bought it at a thrift store. Why? Because it was $3 and it was warm. Okay. Take your shirt off. He raised an eyebrow. Not like, just, your shirt is soaked, you're shivering, take it off, put this on. I'm not shivering. Your teeth were just chattering. They were not. Adrian. Yes, Lena. Take your shirt off. He stood up. He stood up in her living room and he reached for his bow tie, and he pulled it the rest of the way loose, and he dropped it on the arm of the couch, and then he unbuttoned his shirt. Slowly, because his hands were cold and stiff. And she watched him, and she realized several things at once. The first was that this was real. The second was that she had seen this man every weekday for 2 years, and she had never once, not in her wildest bathroom mirror fantasies, imagined that she would be watching him undress in her apartment. The third was that he had a tattoo. On his left rib. A small one. She couldn't see what it was from where she was standing because the wet shirt was still in the way, and then he pulled it off over his head, and she could see it, and it was a date. That was it. A date. In small Roman numerals. She didn't try to read it. It felt like something she wasn't supposed to see yet. She handed him the sweatshirt. Thanks, he said. You're welcome. You're staring. I'm sorry. Don't be. He pulled the sweatshirt on. It was tight across the shoulders and a little short in the arms, and it was the most ridiculous thing she had ever seen. Adrian Vale, in tuxedo pants and a thrift store sweatshirt, barefoot because he had kicked off his wet shoes at some point, and she hadn't noticed, his hair still a damp wreck, sitting back down on her couch like he belonged there. Champagne? She said. Please. She went to the freezer. The bottle was miraculously cold. She took 2 coffee mugs down from the cabinet, a red one with a chip on the handle that she had bought at Target, and a white one with the logo of a company she had worked for 4 jobs ago, which she kept for reasons she couldn't explain. She brought them out to the couch. She handed him the red one. She kept the white one. She sat down next to him, close enough that her knee was touching his thigh, because she was not going to pretend she didn't want to be close to him now. What was the point? There was no more pretending. And she opened the champagne. It popped. Loud. They both flinched. She laughed. I haven't done that in a while. Clearly, she poured. She poured badly. It foamed over into her lap, and he reached for a napkin. Her kitchen had no napkins, only paper towels, and dabbed at her jeans, and his hand was on her thigh, and everything stopped for a second. Sorry, he said. Don't be. She held up her mug. To New Year's Eve. He held up his. To New Year's Eve. To Ryan Seacrest. To Ryan Seacrest. To the Whitestone Gala. Absolutely not. She laughed. They touched mugs. The clink was muted. She took a sip. It tasted predictably like $12 champagne. Sour, fizzy, not entirely not bad. And she thought she had never tasted anything better in her life. Lena. Yeah. What are we going to do? She looked at him. He was looking at the Christmas tree, not at her, and his face had gotten serious, and she knew what he meant. About Monday. About the office. About the 40 things that were going to try to get in the way. She set her mug down on the coffee table next to the candle, next to the tree. I don't know, she said, but we're going to figure it out. Yeah. And I'm not going to let you lose your job over me. Lena, and I'm not going to lose mine either. Lena, listen. I'm listening. He turned. He set his mug down next to hers. He took both of her hands in both of his. Whatever happens on Monday, he said. Whatever happens on Tuesday. Whatever happens for the next, I don't know, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years. We're going to figure it out together, you and me, okay? Okay? I'm not fancy enough for you, Lena Carter. You're fancy enough for me. I'm in a thrift store sweatshirt on your couch. That's the fanciest thing I've ever seen. He laughed. Then he pulled her toward him and she let herself go, and she ended up with her head on his shoulder and his arm around her and her face in the Columbia sweatshirt which smelled like her detergent and his cold skin underneath. And outside the radiator clanked and the music played upstairs, and somewhere a siren went by on 9th Avenue, and in the corner of the room the little Christmas tree, lopsided and top-heavy, and covered in ornaments from a woman who had been trying, glowed in the light from the 2 cheap candles. Lena. Yeah. Can I stay? She was quiet for a long time. Not like that, he said quickly. I meant I can sleep on the couch. The drive home, the snow, and I don't want to leave yet. I don't want to leave at all, if I'm honest. I'll sleep on the floor. I'll sleep standing up. I just don't want this to end when you make me get up and go home. She pressed her face a little harder into his shoulder. Stay, she said. Okay. On the couch. On the couch. For now. He was quiet. Then he said, for now. She could feel his heart beating through the sweatshirt. It was going fast. Faster than his voice sounded. Much faster, like the rest of him was keeping a secret from his chest. She put her hand flat on his sternum, over the Columbia logo, and she felt it, and she thought, I am going to be listening to this for a long time. She didn't know that yet. Not really, not for sure. 40 things were going to come for them in the morning. 40 things, and then 100, and then 1,000. There were going to be meetings. There was going to be gossip. There was going to be a woman in HR named Carol who was going to have thoughts. There was going to be a moment in the elevator in 3 weeks where somebody noticed the way Adrian Vale's hand brushed the small of Lena Carter's back. And it was going to get back to the board, and there was going to be a difficult afternoon in a glass conference room with lawyers in it. But that was in the morning. That was January 2nd and January 7th and February and March. Right now it was 12:34 a.m., and she was on her couch, and Adrian Vale was asleep with his head back against her cushions and his mouth slightly open because he was exhausted, because he had been on his feet at a gala for 4 hours and then driven through a blizzard and then undressed in her living room, and she had pulled a throw blanket over him and watched him fall asleep in under 6 minutes, which she thought was maybe the most trusting thing she had ever seen anyone do. She blew out the candles. She left the tree lights on. She sat down on the floor in front of the couch because she didn't want to go to bed without him, and she didn't want to wake him up. She put her head on the cushion next to his knee. She closed her eyes. The radiator clanked. The party upstairs went on. Somewhere in the building, a door opened and a woman laughed, high and delighted. And then the door closed and it was quiet again. Lena Carter, 31 years old, who had spent every New Year's Eve of her life alone, fell asleep on her living room floor with her cheek on a thrift store sweatshirt and one man's warm hand, in his sleep, drifting down to rest on top of her hair. Somewhere around 2 in the morning, it started snowing harder. By morning, 48th Street was going to be buried. Neither of them woke up to see it. By morning, 48th Street was under 14 inches of snow. Lena Carter woke up first. Her neck was stiff from the angle, her cheek had a fabric pattern pressed into it from the cushion, and there was a dead, tingling feeling in the arm she had apparently slept on. The living room was gray with the kind of muffled gray that only happened in New York after a serious snowfall, when the sound of the city got sucked up into drifts and the light came through the window soft as cotton. Her little Christmas tree was still glowing, 400 tiny lights on a 22-inch tree, and the candles she had blown out at 12:34 were black stubs in their jars. She did not move. She was afraid to move. Adrian Vale was still asleep on her couch, one arm flung over the back of it, the other tucked under the throw blanket she had thrown over him. His mouth was still slightly open. His hair was catastrophic. The Columbia sweatshirt had bunched up around his ribs, and she could see a strip of pale skin and the corner of that tattoo again. She still couldn't read the numbers, and she still didn't try. His hand was in her hair. He had, at some point in the night, shifted his arm so that his fingers were tangled in the ends of it, loose, gentle, like he had been reaching for her in his sleep and then given up halfway. She lay very still on the floor and watched the ceiling. She thought, If I move, he wakes up. If he wakes up, he leaves. If he leaves, I have to start figuring out whether that happened or not. She gave herself 10 more minutes. They turned into 20. At 7:42 in the morning, his phone started ringing somewhere in the coat on the floor. Adrian made a sound that was less a word and more the noise a bear might make if you poked it in November. His hand tightened in her hair. Not hard, just a reflex. And then he registered that his hand was in her hair, and she felt him go still, and she could tell, even without looking at him, the exact moment he remembered where he was. "Lena," he said. His voice was destroyed. "Hi. Am I on your couch?" "You are on my couch." "Is it morning?" "It is morning." A pause. He didn't move. "Is that my phone?" "Yes." "Can we let it ring?" "That's your choice." It rang 4 more times and stopped. 3 seconds later, it started again. "Jesus Christ," he said, quietly, almost to himself. He disentangled his fingers from her hair, slow, careful, like he was worried about snags, which she suddenly and violently loved him for, and sat up. The blanket fell into her lap. He swung his legs off the couch and reached for the pile of his wet coat on the floor and dug through the pockets until he found his phone. He looked at the screen. "It's my mother," he said. "Oh, she gets up at 5 on New Year's Day. She's been trying to reach me since I left the gala. I have..." He looked at the screen. 11 missed calls and a voicemail and 4 texts, and she has just called me a 12th time. "You should answer." "I'm going to answer. Do you want me to go in the other room?" "No," he said immediately. "No, please, stay. Please stay." She stayed. He answered. "Hi, Mom." There was an immediate, audible reaction on the other end of the phone. Lena couldn't make out the words. The voice sounded compressed through the earpiece, but the tone was unmistakable. A woman, somewhere in her 60s, somewhere in Connecticut, who had been up since 5 and had not slept well, and had spent approximately 7 hours convinced her only son had frozen to death in a ditch on the Merritt Parkway. Adrian listened. Then he said, I know, Mom. I'm sorry." Pause. "No, I didn't. I wasn't at the gala. I left early." Pause. It's complicated, Mom." Pause. "No, I'm not hungover." A long pause. "I'm fine. I'm more than fine." He looked at Lena when he said that. She was still on the floor, wrapped in the throw blanket now, her hair wrecked, her makeup from the night before smudged under her eyes, her lipstick kissed entirely off, her sweater pulling off one shoulder the way it always pulled off when she sat on the floor, and he looked at her like he wanted to tell his mother everything and also like he didn't know where to start. "Mom," he said, "I'm going to call you back in a little bit, okay? I'm okay. I promise." Pause. "Yes." Pause. "I said yes, Mom." Pause. Longer. "We can talk about it when I call you back. I will. I will. I love you. I will. I love you. Goodbye." He hung up. He put the phone down on her coffee table next to the dead candle with the exaggerated slowness of a man who was resisting the urge to throw it through a wall. "She's coming," he said. "Coming where?" "Here. To the city. She was going to come Sunday for dinner. She's moved it up." "Because of the weather?" "No." "Oh, she heard my voice. She says she can hear my voice." He rubbed his face with both hands. "She's known about you for a year." Lena sat up very straight. "What?" "My mother has known about you for a year. Adrian, I have 2 sisters. I have a mother. I'm an only son. They have had nothing to do for approximately 14 months, except ask me very invasive questions about why I get quiet when my phone dings at certain times. I'm sorry. I know. I'm going to pay for therapy, for both of us. It's going to be a thing." She stared at him. "What did you tell her about me?" He didn't answer right away. "Adrian," she said. "I told her," he said carefully, "that I worked with a woman who I thought was maybe the best person I had ever met, and that I couldn't do anything about it because I was her boss, and that it was probably going to ruin my life. And my mother asked me what my plan was, and I told her I didn't have one. And my mother said, and I quote, 'Adrian Michael Vale, I have raised you better than that.' 'What's your plan, Adrian Michael Vale?' 'My plan right now,' he said, is to find coffee. She started laughing. She put her face in her hands and she laughed and she couldn't stop. And when she looked up, he was smiling at her in a way that was, she was going to admit later, embarrassing to both of them. I have coffee, she said. I have a French press. It's cheap. It leaks a little. Perfect. I don't have milk. I have that creamer, the powdered kind, from when I'm being lazy. Perfect. You hate powdered creamer. You've been actively rude about powdered creamer at the office. I will drink powdered creamer today, he said, and I will tell you I love it. She made coffee. She made it in the leaky French press on the counter, and she wore the throw blanket around her shoulders like a cape. And Adrian stood barefoot in her kitchen in tuxedo pants and a too small Columbia sweatshirt, and he looked at her shelves, at the 4 cookbooks she had never opened, and the little ceramic bird on top of the microwave, and the photo she had stuck to the fridge with a magnet. A photo of herself at 19 standing in front of a diner she had worked at in Poughkeepsie with a girl named Monica who had quit 2 weeks later and moved to Reno. Who's this? He said. Monica. I worked with her a million years ago. I haven't seen her since she was 20. She moved to Reno. Why Reno? She had a cousin there. Why is her hair blue? It was 2014. That's fair. He kept looking. A program from a play she had gone to by herself 5 years ago, still pinned to the fridge because she had liked the design. A grocery list from 2 weeks ago, still half completed. A postcard from Yosemite that her former coworker Priya had sent her from California in April. Nothing from a family, no pictures of nieces, no save the date on the fridge, no wedding invitation, no magnet from somebody's vacation, just Lena's one life, pinned to one fridge. He didn't say anything about it. He didn't need to. She poured the coffee. She handed him the red mug. He had already picked up the red mug, the one he had drunk champagne out of the night before, and put it in the sink, so she gave him a blue one this time with a ceramic handle shaped like an owl. He held it for a second without drinking and he said, "Thank you." "It's just coffee." "No, it isn't. It's coffee, Adrian." "Okay." They sat at her tiny kitchen table. Her tiny kitchen table was not designed for 2 people. It was designed for one person who had given up. They sat across from each other, their knees bumped. Neither of them moved their knees. "Okay," he said. "We need to talk." "Okay." "About Monday." "Okay." About what we do." "Okay." "I've been thinking about it since 5 a.m. "You've been awake since 5 a.m. "I've been awake since 4:45 a.m. I didn't want to move because your hair was in my hand, and I was afraid if I moved, I was going to pull it, and I wasn't willing to pull it." She looked down at her coffee. "Adrian." "Yes, Lena." "Keep talking." "Okay. So, Monday. Here's what I think, and you can tell me I'm wrong. You are empowered to tell me I'm wrong about anything, at any time, from now until the end of the world." Duly noted. "I'm going to call Ben Wachtel tomorrow. Ben is on the board. Ben is also one of my oldest friends. Ben has been telling me for a year I need to fire my assistant or marry her. Those were his exact words. And I called him a name I'm not going to repeat in this kitchen, and I hung up on him. So Ben is on our side. Ben is going to help us think about how to handle this with HR. Okay. Second, you are not going to be my assistant anymore." She set her mug down. "Adrian, wait, let me finish. You are not going to be my assistant anymore because it's not okay for you to be my assistant anymore. That is not about you, and it's not about doubting you, and it's not about taking anything away from you. It's about me. It's about the power I have over you on paper and the way that is going to look to everyone on Earth, and the way it is going to feel to you at 2 p.m. on some random Thursday when I ask you to do something. I don't want there to be a Thursday where you wonder if I'm asking you because I'm your boss or because I'm the guy who slept on your couch. I want to take that off the table forever." "Okay. But I don't want you to leave. I want you to move up. I have been watching you run my calendar and my correspondence and half my firm for 2 years, Lena, and you are better at my job than a lot of people at my job are at my job. There is a role in strategic operations that has been open since September because the last person in it was terrible, and I fired him, and I haven't filled it because I have not found anybody I actually want in it. It reports to Maya Torres. Maya Torres does not report to me. Maya Torres reports to the COO. Maya Torres has wanted you for her team for a year. She has asked me twice if I would let you transfer, and I said no both times because I am apparently a selfish person who did not want to lose you sitting 12 feet from my desk. Adrian. I know. Adrian, you're offering me a promotion. I am not offering you anything. Maya is going to offer you a promotion next week with a 15% raise, benefits, and the ability to fire me as a character in your work life without ever having to see me in the hallway again if that's what you want. Adrian. I know. Adrian, stop. Look at me. He looked at her. His eyes were tired and green and scared and also steady, and she thought, this is what he looks like when he's telling the truth. I don't want to never see you in the hallway again. I know, I'm just saying you get to choose. I know what you're saying, but I need you to hear me say this. I want the job with Maya. I want the raise. I want the distance from you on the org chart. I want all of that because you're right. Because you are actually right. Okay. But, I want to see you in the hallway. I want to see you in the elevator. I want to be able to ride down 42 floors with you at 6 p.m. and not be terrified that somebody is going to look at us. He closed his eyes for a second. Okay, he said. Okay. We'll figure that part out. We will. Lena. Yeah. I'm very bad at this. Bad at what? All of this. I'm 38 years old. The last serious relationship I had ended in 2019. The one before that ended in 2014. I am not good at people. I am good at spreadsheets, and I am good at meetings, and I am very, very good at saying no. I am not good at this. I just want you to know in advance, because I'm going to disappoint you at some point. I'm going to go quiet. I'm going to work too late. I'm going to forget something important. I'm going to be a frustrating person to be in love with. And I'm sorry in advance. She set her coffee down. She reached across the table. She took his hand. Adrian. Yes, I aged out of foster care at 18. I haven't had a real relationship since 2017. I've been alone on New Year's Eve for 9 years in a row. I'm going to be a frustrating person to be in love with too. I'm going to flinch when you try to plan things, and I'm going to try to pay for things I can't afford to pay for because I don't want to owe you. And I'm going to expect you to disappear on me at some point because I always expect everyone to disappear on me at some point. I am. She was tearing up again. Damn it, she had not signed up to cry twice in 12 hours. I am not your picture book girlfriend. I don't come from anywhere. I don't have people. Lena. What? You do now. She put her forehead down on the tiny kitchen table. Oh my God, she said, muffled into her arm. You can't say things like that. You can't. I will die. I will literally die right here. My landlord will find me and tell my remains to a Columbia sweatshirt. He was laughing. She could feel the table shaking. He was laughing, and he moved his hand, and his fingers slid through her hair at the crown of her head, slow and careful, and he held his hand there. Lena, he said, I need to ask you something. She didn't look up. What? Can I take you out to breakfast? She looked up. Right now? Right now. There's a diner on 8th Avenue called the Blue Owl that is open 365 days a year, including New Year's morning, and I would like to take you to it. And I would like you to wear whatever you want, and I would like to wear these tuxedo pants and this sweatshirt because I did not come prepared for the morning after. And I would like us to walk there in the snow because it is 14 inches deep on your street, and the city is not moving, and it will be quiet out there in a way that it will not be quiet again until maybe March. And I would like to eat pancakes because I have not eaten anything since a very small toast point shaped like an ear at 6:30 p.m. yesterday, and I am starving. And I would very much like my first meal of this year to be with you. She stared at him across the table. That's the longest sentence I've ever heard you say. I know. Adrian. Yes. Yes. Let's go to breakfast. They bundled up. She gave him an old wool coat she had bought at Goodwill 3 winters ago, which fit him only at the arms, not the shoulders, not at all. He put his tuxedo shoes back on, and she gave him a pair of her thick wool socks, and they stuffed paper towels into the toes so they didn't squelch. He looked, when they were done, like a person who had been assembled out of a lost and found bin. He looked, she admitted to herself, happier than any human being had ever looked in her apartment. They went downstairs. 48th Street was white. There was no other word for it. The snow had kept coming all night, and it was still coming, slow now, a few big slow flakes drifting down. And the whole city was buried. Cars were white lumps along the curb. The street lamps wore little white hats. Someone had been out at some point with a shovel and carved a crooked path down the sidewalk, wide enough for one person, and the walk hadn't been used yet, not by more than a few boots, and the snow on either side was untouched and glowing. Lena stepped out of the vestibule onto the stoop, and she stopped. "Oh," she said. "Yeah. Oh my. I know." It was silent. That was the thing. That was what she had never known about a snow day in New York, because she had never been outside on a snow day in New York, because she had always been home under a blanket with the TV on. It was silent. There were no cars moving. There was no shouting. There was no honking. Somewhere up the street, a man was scraping a shovel on concrete, and the sound was so clean and so small that you could have counted the scrapes. Adrian stepped down onto the sidewalk. He turned around. He held out his hand. "Come on." She took his hand. She came down off the stoop, in her boots and her old peacoat and the scarf she had knitted herself the winter she was 24, when she had been briefly convinced she was going to become a person who knitted, and she held his hand, and they started walking. They walked slow. There was no reason to go fast. The snow came up over their ankles. She slipped once on a hidden patch of ice, and he caught her, and she laughed. He slipped twice because his tuxedo shoes had no tread, and she caught him the second time, and he said, "Okay, I will not be wearing these again." And she said, "I will burn them when we get home." And then they both stopped walking, because she had said home, and she had not said your home or my home or back upstairs. She had said home, like they had one, and she had said it without thinking about it. And he looked at her like she had said something important, which she supposed she had. They kept walking. At 9th Avenue, a yellow cab crept past them, the only vehicle on the road, chains on the tires, and the driver waved at them, and Adrian waved back. A woman in a long puffer coat and a dog in a sweater came the other way, and the dog, a small dog, a corgi, lost its mind at the snow, trying to eat it, trying to bury its face in it, and the woman laughed, and Lena laughed, and the woman called out, "Happy New Year!" And they called it back, and they kept walking. Lena. "Yeah. I haven't walked down a sidewalk with a woman in 7 years. That's depressing." "I know. How do you feel?" "Weirdly okay." "Weirdly okay? I've been expecting this to feel bad. Being seen with someone. I have been, for a long time, I have been very careful about who sees me with anyone. I have avoided it. I have not let anybody see me with anybody since a long time ago. And I thought walking down this sidewalk was going to feel like getting x-rayed, and it doesn't. What does it feel like? It feels like holding your hand." She squeezed his hand. She couldn't say anything. The Blue Owl was a block and a half away, and they saw the neon open sign from all the way down the street. It was red and slightly flickering, and it was the only spot of color on the whole block, other than them. The windows of the diner were fogged over from the inside. Through a clear patch near the door, Lena could see a handful of people inside, a waitress pouring coffee, a cook at the counter wiping his hands on a towel, a man in a sanitation department jacket eating a plate of eggs with his gloves still on the table next to him. Adrian opened the door. A bell jangled. A blast of warm air hit them, sugary and meaty, bacon and syrup and burned coffee, and a woman's voice called out, "Sit anywhere, sweethearts," without even looking up from the register. They sat in a booth by the window. Red vinyl. The vinyl had a slit in it, and there was a piece of duct tape over the slit. Lena ran her thumb over the duct tape. Adrian sat across from her. She pulled off her scarf. He pulled off the Goodwill coat. Underneath, he was still in the stupid tiny Columbia sweatshirt, and he looked at her across the table like a man who had never been so happy to be badly dressed in his life. "Coffee?" the waitress said. She was maybe 60. Her name tag said Norma. She had a pencil behind one ear, and her eye makeup was blue. "Please," they said together. She filled both their mugs without asking if they wanted it. "You two just getting in?" "From the snow," Adrian said. "From a party," Norma corrected, looking at his tuxedo pants under the table. Don't lie to me, honey. I've been doing this a long time. Lena started laughing. Okay, Adrian said. From a party. A good one? Not really, he said. But it got better around 10. Norma smiled. That's how it usually goes. Pancakes? Eggs? Both? Both, he said. Please, a lot. Same, Lena said. Good kids. Norma clicked her pen and walked away. The coffee was terrible. It was unbelievable. It was the best coffee Lena had ever had in her life. Adrian wrapped his hands around his mug like it was a campfire. Outside the window, the snow kept falling, slow and steady and pretty. Adrian. Yeah, tell me about your mother. He took a breath. He looked at her like he was deciding where to start. Her name is Elaine. She's 63. She lives in Darien. My dad died when I was 27. Liver cancer. It was fast. It was hard. And she was a mess for about a year, and then she got her act together, and now she runs a small nonprofit that teaches English to women at a community center in Stamford. She has 2 sisters she doesn't speak to and 1 cousin she loves. She makes a lasagna that will make you cry. She watches the Mets. She cries at Subaru commercials. She sounds wonderful. She's terrifying. She will hug you the first time she meets you. She will ask you things. She will ask you a lot of things. I'm telling you this in advance so that you can brace yourself. She's not going to ask you about your parents because she already knows I told her, and she is going to be careful about that. But she is going to ask you a lot of other things, and she is going to feed you a lot of food, and she is going to ask you about your hobbies, and she is going to ask you if you are sleeping enough, and she is going to… Adrian. Yes. I would like to meet your mother. He went still. When? He said. Whenever she's coming. You said she was coming. When is she coming? Tomorrow, probably, if the road's open. Tomorrow is fine. He looked at her. He set his mug down. Lena. Adrian. Are you sure? Do I look like a woman who is not sure? No. I've never had… She said, and she stopped. She took a breath. She looked down at her hands on the table. I've never had somebody's mother to meet before. I've never… When I dated someone, it didn't get to that part. And I don't have a mother for you to meet. I don't have anyone for you to meet. So it's just yours. And I would like to meet yours. Okay? And I would like you to tell her when you call her back that I'm not going anywhere. Okay? Tell her that. I will tell her that. The pancakes came. They were enormous. There were 6 of them. They were the size of the plate. They came with 3 little pats of butter on top and a bottle of syrup on the side. The bacon came on a separate plate because the eggs were on the plate with the pancakes, and Norma was a woman who knew that bacon touching egg was a sad way to start a year. They ate. They didn't talk for a while. The diner was quiet. The radio behind the counter was playing something country, a woman with a low voice singing something about a house she used to live in. The sanitation man finished his eggs and pushed his plate away and nodded to them as he walked out, and the door jangled, and a blast of cold came in. Adrian said, I have to tell you something. She looked up. Okay? It's not bad. Okay. My sisters already know. She raised her eyebrows. I called them from the car. From the car on the way to my apartment? Yes. Before you got here? Yes. Why? Because I was going to get you, or I was going to wreck my life trying, and I needed them to know because I needed somebody to know. I have 2 sisters, Kate and Joe. Kate is 40, Joe is 29. They live in Brooklyn together. Don't ask. It's a long story. They answered on speakerphone because they always answer on speakerphone. I have not had a private conversation with one of them in about 15 years, and I told them. I told them where I was going and why. And Kate asked me if I had thought it through, and I said no. And Joe asked me if I was drunk, and I said no. And Kate asked me her name, and I said Lena, and there was this very long pause, and then Joe said, the hair one. And Kate said, the cedar shampoo one. And I realized I had been a much worse keeper of secrets than I thought I had been. Lena stared at him. Your sisters know about the shampoo. My sisters know about everything. Adrian. In my defense, Joe is very persistent. Oh my God. He laughed. He actually laughed. He put his fork down. They want to meet you too. I feel faint. You don't have to meet everyone at once. I am just telling you. I am telling you in advance that you are not going to you're not going to be alone after this. That is what I am telling you. That is what I want you to know. That whatever happens, with work, with us, with everything, you have already been added to a list. My mother has you on the list. My sisters have you on the list. I have you on the list. You are not going to be alone on another New Year's Eve. Lena Carter, I'm telling you that now. She stopped hearing the restaurant. She stopped hearing the country song. She stopped hearing Norma at the counter shuffling receipts. She stopped hearing the heater kicking on. She was sitting in a red vinyl booth on 49th Street at 9:15 a.m. on January 1st, across from a man in a thrift store Columbia sweatshirt and tuxedo pants, with pancakes in front of her and syrup pooling on her plate, and he was looking at her with his dark-circled green eyes and saying words that she had not let herself want those words in so long that it felt like they were being said in a language she had forgotten she spoke. "Don't cry," he said. "I'm going to cry a little." "Okay, just a little. Whatever you need." She wiped her eyes with her napkin. She blew her nose. Norma from across the diner called out, "You okay over there, honey?" And Lena called back, "I'm great, thank you, Norma." And Norma said, "Take your time, sweetie," and turned her back to give them privacy, and Lena loved Norma with her entire heart. "Adrian, yeah, I want you to know that whatever you do and whatever happens, and whatever Monday looks like, and whatever anybody says to us, last night was the best night of my life. It has already been worth it." Lena, don't argue." "I wasn't going to argue. I was going to tell you it was the best night of mine, too." She put her hand over her face. He reached across the table and gently moved her hand away and kept it in his. They finished the pancakes. They got a second pot of coffee. Adrian asked for the check and Norma brought it over and Lena reached for it and Adrian said, "No. Adrian, I'm getting this. I can pay for my own pancakes." "I know you can. I want to pay for them. I've been paying for my own pancakes for 16 years. I know. You are very good at paying for pancakes. You are the world's leading pancake purchaser. Please let me do this one." She let him. He paid the check. He left a tip that made Norma do a double take and hug him on the way out. He put the Goodwill coat back on over the Columbia sweatshirt. He held the door for her. The bell jangled. The cold hit them. They stepped out onto 49th Street. The snow was slowing down. The sky was a pale wet blue behind the last of the flakes. A plow had come through somewhere while they were in the diner. The street was still white, but you could see the dark shine of wet asphalt where the blade had scraped. And the city was starting to wake up, slow. A man was shoveling in front of a bodega. A woman was letting a golden retriever off-leash in the middle of the closed street, and the dog was running in huge, happy circles, its legs disappearing in the drifts. Adrian stopped on the sidewalk. He turned to Lena. "I have to go home at some point." "I know. I need to get clothes. I need to shower. I have to call my mother back, and I have to call my sisters back, and I have a lot of work to do before Monday. I have to call Ben. I have to call HR. There are a lot of phone calls." "I know. Come with me." She blinked. "To your apartment. To my apartment, just for the day. You don't have to stay the night. I'm not asking for that. I'm asking you to sit on my couch while I make phone calls because I don't want to be in a room without you in it today." Is that a weird thing to ask? That feels like a weird thing to ask. It's not weird. Will you come? Yes. Yes? Yes. Okay. He was nodding. He looked relieved. He looked, she thought, like a man who had been bracing for no and had gotten yes. "Okay, I'm going to call Luis. He's probably still digging the car out. Do you want to come back to your place first and grab a bag, or—" "I want to grab a bag." "Okay, good. They walked back to her building. He held her hand the whole way. At the corner of 48th and 10th, a pair of teenage boys were in the middle of a snowball fight, hitting each other so hard with ice that it was more of a battle than a game, and one of them slipped and landed on his back in a drift and started laughing so hard he couldn't get up. And his friend stopped throwing snow and started laughing too, and the two of them lay there for a minute in the snow cackling at each other. Adrian and Lena walked past them and smiled, and Adrian said under his breath, "Brothers?" "How can you tell?" "I have two sisters. I know what siblings laugh like." They got back to her building. They climbed the 4 flights because the elevator was making a noise Lena didn't trust today. She opened apartment 4B. She stepped inside and it was exactly the same as they had left it. The blanket on the couch, the 2 mugs on the coffee table, the Christmas tree still on, the candles still out, the bottle of champagne empty on the counter. And also it was not the same at all, because yesterday, at this time, it had been the apartment of a woman who lived alone, and today it was not. She packed a bag, small duffel, pajamas, a change of clothes, her toothbrush, her phone charger, her book. She stood in the bathroom for a second and looked at herself in the mirror, the same mirror she had looked at herself in yesterday, and the woman looking back was the same face, same hair, same dark eyes, and also she was not. Lena didn't have a name for what was different. She decided not to name it yet. She came back out. Adrian was in the living room in his ridiculous outfit looking at her ornaments. He was holding the popsicle stick star carefully in one hand, as if it might break. "Who made this?" he said. "I did." "When?" "I was 9. It's beautiful." "It's a popsicle stick star, Adrian." "Yes." "It's not beautiful." "It is to me." He hung it back on the tree. He turned around. He looked at her duffel bag, at her coat, at her boots. "Ready? Ready?" She locked the apartment behind her. They went down the 4 flights of stairs and out onto the sidewalk, and Luis was there in the black Suburban, idling at the curb, and he rolled down the window and grinned at Lena like he had been waiting to meet her his whole life. "Miss Lena," he said. "Finally." "Hi, Luis." Get in, it's warm." "Mr. Adrian, I told you for a year." "Shut up, Luis." "I told him for a year, Miss Lena." "Luis, please." Lena was laughing and Adrian was covering his face, and Luis was grinning in the rearview mirror, and the black Suburban pulled away from the curb and made its slow, careful way up 10th Avenue, the only dark thing moving through a city made of white, carrying a man in a wet tuxedo and a woman in a peacoat and an overnight bag. And inside the car, Adrian took her hand, and he held it, and he didn't let go. Not at the lights, not in the turns, not when he finally called his mother back from the back seat and said, and she heard it, she heard every word. "Mom, hi. I'm sorry. I'm okay." She said yes to pancakes. She said yes to meeting you. She said yes to all of it. "I'll call you back." He hung up the phone. He looked at Lena. He said, "Happy New Year." She said, "Happy New Year." And for the rest of the drive uptown, neither of them said anything at all, because nothing else needed saying. Not yet, not in that car, not with the snow still coming down on the windshield and Luis humming quietly to himself in the front seat, and the whole rest of their lives sitting very patiently in the back. Adrian Vale lived on the 22nd floor of a pre-war building on Park Avenue with a doorman named Gerald, who had been at his post for 41 years. Gerald saw a man in a wet tuxedo and an ill-fitting coat come through the revolving door with a woman in a thrift store peacoat, and Gerald's face didn't move 1 millimeter, not a blink, not a twitch, as he said, "Welcome home, Mr. Vale. Good morning, miss. Happy New Year." "Happy New Year, Gerald," Adrian said. "Gerald," Lena said. "Miss." That was it. No eyebrow. No flicker. Gerald pressed the elevator button for them and stepped back, hands folded behind him, and Lena realized somewhere in the ride up that Gerald had probably seen Adrian Vale come through that lobby 10,000 times in the last 6 years and had never once, not once, seen him come through with a woman. Because if Gerald had seen it before, Gerald would have looked at her differently. Gerald had looked at her the way he would have looked at the president's wife, the way he would have looked at a person he was being careful not to make feel watched. The apartment was not what she expected. She had expected glass, marble, a view. She had expected something out of the magazines that came in the mail for him addressed to the office, the ones she routed to his assistant mailbox, which was her mailbox, which she had flipped through sometimes when no one was looking. She had expected a home that looked like his office looked, expensive, impersonal, cold. It was none of those things. It was a railroad apartment on the second to top floor of a building with good bones and bad plumbing and a tile floor in the entryway that had been laid in 1924 and never replaced. And it had books. That was the first thing she saw. Books. On every wall. Floor to ceiling in the hallway that led from the entry, stacked sideways on top of the shelves where they had run out of vertical room, piled double deep in places, an actual ladder against one of the walls like in a movie. She took her boots off at the door because her boots were wet and because she didn't know what else to do with her hands. And she stepped onto the cold tile in her socks, and she looked up and she said, "You have so many books." "I like books." "Adrian, you have so many books." "My mother says I have a problem." "You have a problem." "I know. Come in." He took her coat. He hung it on a hook next to his own wet coat and the Goodwill one he had borrowed. There was a bench in the entry with a pair of running shoes under it and a single tennis ball that she was going to have to ask about. Past the books, there was a living room. Small, by the standards of a man who presumably could afford an enormous one, with a couch that looked like it had been sat in. Like, actually sat in. There was a dent in one of the cushions shaped like a person. There was a blanket bunched up at the other end. There was a coffee table with an open book face down on it, pages splayed, which was a way of treating a book that she hadn't expected from him. And there was a mug on a coaster with what looked like tea remains at the bottom, and the mug said "World's Okayest Brother" on it. That mug. My sister Jo. It says you're the world's okayest brother. I am the world's okayest brother. That was a present. It was. She is my favorite person in the world, and I have not met her yet. He laughed. He walked her through the apartment. The kitchen was narrow and a little shabby, with an old gas stove and a kettle that had clearly been used that morning, was still faintly warm, and a single plate in the sink with a fork on it. There was a little table by the window that looked out on an air shaft, similar to hers, except his had a geranium in a pot on the sill, and the geranium was blooming in January, and she said, "How is that alive?" And he said, "I don't know. I have not killed it yet." Past the kitchen, there was a hallway with 3 doors. One was a bathroom, old, with the kind of black and white hexagonal tile that ran under a claw-footed tub. One was a closet. One was the bedroom. He stopped at the bedroom door. He didn't open it. I'm not going to... We're not going in there yet. Okay. It's just, you haven't, I haven't. Adrian, it's fine. Okay. What's on the other side of it? What does it look like? It's just a bed and a chair and an alarm clock, and I assume some laundry on the floor because I left the house in a hurry last night. Is that where I'm supposed to sleep when I eventually stay over? I mean, yes, but yes, I haven't thought about it in those terms yet. Yes. Okay, for now. I'm sleeping on the couch. Absolutely not. I'm taking the couch. You're taking the bed. Don't argue. Lena, I slept on your couch last night. That's how this works. You can't sleep on mine tonight. I'm a grown man. I'm going to sleep on my own couch. We're going to argue about this later. Yes, we are. She set her duffel bag down next to the couch. She went to the window. His living room faced west, and she could see through a gap between 2 taller buildings a narrow slice of the Hudson, silver in the morning light, with chunks of ice floating in it. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass. Adrian came up behind her. He didn't touch her. He just stood close enough that she could feel him. I lived in Astoria for 4 years, she said quietly. I lived in the Bronx for 2. I've been in Hell's Kitchen for 3. I've never lived anywhere with a view of water. Okay. I didn't know that apartments like yours existed in real life. Lena, it's 2 bedrooms. There are many nicer apartments in this city. Shut up. Okay. Let me just be impressed for a minute. Okay. She stood at the window for another half minute. Then she turned around. His face was tired. He had circles under his eyes. His hair was a situation. His tuxedo pants were still damp at the knees and at the cuffs. Shower, she said. You smell like a ballroom in snow. Thank you, Lena. Go, shower. I'll sit. I'll read one of your 9,000 books. Anyone you want? Anyone I want? Anyone. Even the signed ones. I'm going to destroy a signed one. Okay? I'm kidding. I know. He went. He disappeared into the bedroom and closed the door, and she heard drawers and the closet, and then a second later the bathroom door closed, and the shower started. The apartment made a sound she did not recognize, some kind of whine in the pipes. and then the water settled in. Lena stood alone in Adrian Vale's living room. She took a slow, deep breath. She did not know what to do with her body. For a moment she just stood there, palms pressed flat against her thighs. Then she sat on the couch, on his cushion, the dented one, and she pulled her feet up underneath her, and she looked around. There were pictures. That was what she had missed when he was walking her through. She had been too dazzled. There were pictures on a side table next to the couch. A wooden frame with a woman in a flowered blouse on a porch somewhere. The same woman from the photo on his desk. His mother. Another frame. 3 people. All in their 20s, arms around each other at what looked like a lake. 2 women, a man. The man was him, younger, thinner, sunburned across the nose. The 2 women were his sisters, clearly. One had his exact jaw. The other had a different face altogether, softer, rounder, laughing so hard at the photographer that her eyes were closed. There was one more picture. It was small, in a silver frame, and it was propped up slightly behind the others like it had been placed there not by an interior designer, but by a person. It was a man, older, 50s maybe, in a dark blue sweater, standing in front of a lit fireplace, holding a glass of something, smiling, tired, kind. She looked at the jaw. She knew, before her brain caught up, who it was. She set the frame back down. She did not touch it again. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She flinched. She had forgotten she had a phone. She pulled it out. It was Marjorie from the office. She'd put her phone on silent last night somewhere in the chaos, and it hadn't buzzed all morning. Marjorie had sent 5 messages. Lena. OMG. Happy New Year. Did you have fun last night? Tell me. Lena. Also, side note, did you see Mr. Vale bolted from the gala last night? Carla was working the coat check. She said he grabbed his coat around 10:30 and was gone in 90 seconds. And then staff were whispering all night and apparently he didn't come back. Do you know anything about it? Lena stared at her phone. She stared at it for a long time. Then she typed, Happy New Year, Marge. I had a quiet night. I don't know anything about Mr. Vale. You'd have to ask him. She sent it. She stared at it. She locked her phone. She set it face down on the coffee table next to his open book. She didn't look at it again. The shower was still going. She got up. She paced. She walked back to the entry and looked at the books in the hallway. She tilted her head to read spines. They were everything. They were not what she would have expected from a man like Adrian Vale. There were economics books, yes, and a whole shelf of finance and strategy, but there was also poetry, and a whole shelf of American novels from the 1950s, and cookbooks, and a battered guide to the birds of the Northeast, and an entire 3 shelves of mystery novels by a single author she had never heard of, and most of a shelf of children's books, which stopped her, which she stood in front of for a long time, running her fingers along the spines. She pulled one out, a fish out of water. She opened it. The inside of the cover had a name written in child's handwriting, Adrian Vale, age 6. She put it back carefully. She went back to the couch. She sat down. She put her hand over her mouth. The shower stopped. She picked up the open book he had been reading, face down, splayed, cover bent, and she turned it over. It was a novel by a woman she had read in college, about a woman who goes to live in a lighthouse, and it was open to page 183, and the first sentence on page 183 was, she had forgotten what it was to be looked at. And now when he looked at her, she did not know whether she had become visible again or whether she had been invisible all along and had only just now realized it. And Lena closed the book very carefully and set it back down, face down, splayed, exactly where it had been. And she went and stood at the window and watched the Hudson and did not cry because she had cried enough for one morning, thank you. Adrian came out of the bedroom in 10 minutes. He was wearing a gray sweater and jeans and wool socks. His hair was wet and pushed back. He had shaved. He looked, she was aware it was ridiculous, exactly like the version of him she had imagined for 2 years at the office. The casual version, the weekend version, the version she had not been allowed to see. He looked like an apology and a promise at the same time. Hi, he said. Hi. You okay? I'm okay. Your books are insane. I know. You had a fish out of water when you were 6. I had all of Dr. Seuss when I was 6. I was a very intense child. I believe it. I have a lot to do. Calls. I'm going to make them in the kitchen. Is that okay? Do you want the TV on? Do you want music? I want to sit on your couch and read and eavesdrop on your phone calls because I am a nosy person. Okay? Go. He went. He kissed the top of her head on the way, quickly, like he was still practicing, and he disappeared into the kitchen with his phone and a fresh mug of tea, and he closed the pocket door halfway so she could almost hear him, which she appreciated. She picked a book off the shelf, one of the American novels from the 1950s, and she curled up on the couch and she tried to read it, and she did not read a word of it because his voice was coming through the door. Ben, hi, Happy New Year. Pause. No, she didn't. I did. Don't be smug. It's not a good look on you. Pause. Okay. Yes. Listen. I need to talk to you, professionally. Pause. Yes. Pause. Yes. Pause. Her name is Lena Carter. You've met her. She was at the... Yeah. That's her. Yes. My assistant. A long pause. Something in Ben's tone came through the door even though she couldn't make out the words. A particular kind of long exhale. An older friend's voice trying hard not to be a jackass. I know, Ben. I know. That's why I'm calling. Pause. Here's what I want to do. Listen, she's going to move. Not out. Up. Maya's strategic ops role, the one I've been sitting on since September, she's going to take that. I'm going to call Maya tonight. I'll have Lena on Maya's team by the end of the week. I want to disclose to HR immediately. I want Carol in HR to walk me through every policy. I want to sign whatever I have to sign. I want it all on the record. Pause. I know there's going to be talk, Ben. I know. That's the point. I'm not asking you to keep it quiet. I'm asking you to help me do this the right way. I want this woman to never have to walk into a room in our firm and wonder if people are whispering. I want everything on paper, and I want everything above board, and I want her reporting line as far from me as humanly possible while she still works there. Pause. I know. Pause. I know, Ben. Pause. Longer, then softer. Ben, I know. I'm going to marry her. Lena stopped breathing. She didn't know she was going to hear that sentence. She could tell. She could tell from his voice that he didn't know he was going to say it. It had come out. It had come out in a phone call to his oldest friend at 10:38 in the morning on New Year's Day, while his hair was still wet and the woman he meant was sitting on his couch not reading a book. Through the door, she heard him exhale, once, shakily. Then, yes, no, we haven't, no, she doesn't know I just said that. I have not, okay, yes, Ben, I am aware of how I sound, yes. I understand I sound insane. I know I've known her for 2 years. I know I spent 2 years not saying anything. Yes, I am going to. I am not doing it tomorrow, Ben. I'm not proposing tomorrow. I'm telling you. A longer pause, and then weirdly tender. Thank you, Ben. Pause. Yes, I love you too. Pause. Shut up, Ben. The kitchen door slid open. Adrian came out. His face was a little red. He did not look directly at her. He said, Ben is, he's going to help. Good. He had some things to say to me. Did he? He called me some names I'm not going to repeat in front of you. Uh-huh. He says hi. Hi back. Adrian sat down on the other end of the couch. He rubbed his face with both hands. Then he looked at her. He looked at her for a long time. Lena. Yes. I think you might have heard some of that. I heard most of that. He closed his eyes. Adrian. Yes. Come here. He came. He slid over. She lifted her book out of the way and he put his head in her lap, like a boy, like a man who had had a long morning, and she ran her fingers through his wet hair and she said, very quietly, I heard what you said at the end. I know. I'm not going to hold you to anything you said to Ben. Okay. But I'm going to remember you said it. Okay. And if you ever say it to me, not to Ben, not to anyone but me, I'm going to say yes. She felt him go still in her lap. Then she felt him turn his face into her thigh, very slightly, so she couldn't see his expression, and his breath shuddered once. Okay, he said. Okay. Okay. They stayed like that for a while. She kept stroking his hair. His breathing slowed. Outside the window, the light over the Hudson shifted. One of those flat January lights that slides over everything and makes the city look like a watercolor that's run. Her phone buzzed again on the coffee table. And again. And again. And again. She reached for it without disturbing him. It was the admin pool group chat. She had, in her haste earlier, not gone back and muted it. 12 messages. She flipped the phone over and read. OMG. Did you guys see what? Carla? The post. The post. The one from the gala. What post? What post, Carla? She felt her skin go cold. Hold on. I'll send the link. A link appeared. It was to a gossip column. A society site that covered the kind of events where people at the Whitestone Gala were photographed. Lena tapped it before she thought about what she was doing. The headline read, Mystery Exit. Vail Capital CEO bolts from Whitestone benefit. Minutes before midnight, who's waiting at home? There was a picture. It was a picture of Adrian at the gala, in his tuxedo before it had been ruined, standing by the coat check looking at his phone. His face was lit up by the screen. Lena had seen that face 12 hours ago. It was the face he had been making while he was texting her. It was the face he had been making when she had said, then come. Underneath the photo, the caption, a source tells us Mr. Vail left without a word at 10:56 p.m. He hadn't smiled all night, says our insider. Then his phone buzzed once, just once, and he was gone. Lena put her hand over her mouth. The group chat kept going. Gee, who is she a mystery? He was so bored at the gala. Carla said, do we think it's that blonde he was dating? He was dating a blonde? I heard it was a model. I heard it was Serena. No. Serena. God, not Serena. Lena scrolled, trying to find the first photo again, and she saw below it a smaller photo she had missed. It was grainy. It was from a street, at night, from a distance. It was his Suburban, Luis's Suburban, pulling up to the curb of her building. She couldn't see her face. She had not come out of the building, but she could see the number above the door for. The address was legible in the photo. She could read it. Anybody could read it. Someone had been standing on her block at midnight with a camera. Someone at the gala had tipped off a photographer. Someone knew, or was about to know, which building Adrian Vail had driven to. Her whole body went hot. Adrian lifted his head out of her lap. What? Nothing. Lena. It's nothing. You went still. Your pulse just jumped. I could feel it. What happened? She didn't answer. She turned the phone around. He looked at the screen. His face did not move. He read. He scrolled. He read some more. His jaw went tight in a way she had seen maybe 3 times at the office. Once, when a trader had lied to him, and twice when a deal had gone sideways. Okay, he said. Adrian. Okay. Okay. Lena, listen to me. Listen. This is going to happen. This was always going to happen. This was going to happen on Monday if it didn't happen today. Adrian, they have my building. I know. They're going to figure out which apartment. They are not. Adrian. Lena, listen. Listen. Gerald. Gerald downstairs. Gerald has been there for 41 years. There is not a photographer alive who is getting past Gerald. You are safe in this building. You are safe in your building too because you have a locked vestibule and the camera was across the street last night. They did not see you. They do not have you. They will not get you. They have the address. They have the building on your block. They don't have the apartment. They don't have the name. They don't have you. Until they do. Until they do. He set the phone down. He took both her hands. Lena, look at me. She looked at him. Her eyes were wet. She couldn't tell if she was scared or angry or just overwhelmed. Probably all 3. This is the part I warned you about, he said. This is one of the 40 things. This is one. There are going to be more. We are going to deal with them. We are going to deal with them together. And I am telling you right now, right this second, if at any point this is too much for you, if at any point you want out, you get out. You tell me and you get out, and I don't fight you. I mean that. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to pretend I won't be wrecked, but I will not fight you. Your life matters more to me than mine does right now. Adrian, I mean it. I know you mean it. Okay? But I'm not leaving. Okay? I'm not leaving you because some gossip website wants a picture. Okay? I grew up in foster care, Adrian. I have been through worse than a gossip column. I know you have. So we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. She leaned her forehead against his. He closed his eyes. Who do you think tipped them off? Somebody at the gala. Somebody who saw you leave. Somebody who saw me leave with that face. Yes. My security guy will figure it out. Don't worry about it. That's my problem. You let me handle that? Okay. Okay. She sat back. She blew out a long breath. You want more tea? I want you to breathe for a minute. I'm breathing. Slower. She breathed slower. He watched her. He didn't blink. His phone rang on the coffee table. He looked at it. He looked at her. Who is it? Joe. Your sister. My sister. Answer it. Lena. Answer it. Tell her hi for me. He answered it. He put it on speaker. Joe. Adrian Michael Vale. The voice coming out of the phone was the voice of a woman who had clearly been drinking coffee since approximately 4 in the morning and was now hopped up on a level of caffeine no human being should be carrying around on a Wednesday. Lena could hear the smile in it already. Joe. Don't Joe me. Don't Joe me, Adrian. I am sitting in my apartment in Park Slope looking at a photograph on my phone of you leaving a gala with your phone lit up, looking like a lunatic. And there is a second photograph of what I am fairly sure is your driver pulling up to a building in Hell's Kitchen. And I have been in a text thread with Kate for approximately 6 hours having a complete loss of my sanity, and I want you to tell me right now. I want you to put me on speaker. Am I on speaker? You're on speaker. I am? Lena? Lena, are you there? Hi, Lena. Hi. Hi, Lena. Lena, who had not expected to be addressed directly through the phone of a man she had kissed for the first time 11 hours ago, said, Hi. Oh my God. Joe. Oh my God, Adrian. Joe, please. Lena, hi. I'm Joe. I am Adrian's younger sister. I am 29. I live in Brooklyn with our sister Kate. Kate and I have been waiting for you for 1 full year. I am about to be extremely embarrassing. I'm going to apologize for it in advance. And then I am going to do it anyway. Are you ready? You are our favorite person, Lena. You are our favorite person. We don't know you, and you are our favorite person. My brother has been an absolute disaster for you for 1.5 years, and we have had to listen to it. Listen to it, Lena. He has no one else to talk to. It all comes to us. And so you are our favorite person in the world. And we are going to love you if you want us to, and we are going to leave you alone if you don't want us to, and I am so sorry that you found out any of this by phone instead of in person at a reasonable Sunday dinner, like a normal family. But we have technically, we have known about you for 1 year, so it's hard to take it slow. I'm sorry. Joe. Adrian. Take the breath. I'm breathing. Lena. Yes. My sister Joe. This is Joe. Lena was laughing. She had covered her face with both hands and she was laughing, not crying, laughing, which was different. And Joe on the phone was laughing too. And Adrian was shaking his head with a tiny, helpless, pleased smile. And Lena said, Hi, Joe. It's really nice to meet you. Meet me? We have not met. We need to meet. We need to meet immediately. Kate is literally losing her mind. Kate, do you want to say hi? Kate's here. A new voice came on, older, drier. Hi, Lena. Hi, Kate. I apologize for my sister. It's okay. It is not okay. Kate, I'm going to be a lot calmer than her, I promise. Adrian, I'm going to text you later. Don't do anything stupid. Lena, it is very nice to half meet you. When this dies down a little, please come to Brooklyn. I will make you dinner. I will not make you meet anyone you don't want to meet. I understand this is all coming at you at a rate of speed that is probably illegal in some states. I'll let you go." "Okay," Lena said. Her voice came out small. "We love you, Adrian. I love you guys." "Lena." "Yeah. We're glad you said yes." "To what?" "To any of it." Joe made a noise on the phone that could only be described as a squeal. Kate said, "Joe, we're hanging up now." And she hung up. The silence in the apartment after was loud. Adrian set the phone down. He looked at her. "That is Joe and Kate. That is Joe and Kate. That is a lot of Joe and Kate at the same time. Yes, I will pace them." "Okay." They come in a pair and they go at about 100 miles an hour, and I am aware that they are a lot. I have been apologizing for them professionally since I was 15 years old. I will shield you from Adrian. "Yes." "I don't want to be shielded." He looked at her. "Okay. I want to meet them soon, this week. Maybe with your mother. I don't want to do it slow. I don't have a script for how to do this, Adrian. I don't know how other people do meeting the family. I don't know what the rules are. I have never had a family to bring anyone home to, and I have never been brought home to anyone else's. I don't want to do it slow. I want to do it like they want to do it. I want to do it today, if we have to. I want to get into it." He stared at her. "Lena." "What?" That is a very generous thing to say." "It's not generous." "It's generous. It's selfish. I want in." He reached for her. He pulled her across the couch. He pulled her until she was half on his lap, and he had one arm behind her back and one hand on the side of her face, and he kissed her forehead, and he kissed her eyebrows, and he kissed her nose, and he kissed her mouth, and he said into her mouth, "Okay, okay, okay." They stayed like that for a while. Then his phone rang again. It was his mother. He looked at Lena. Lena said, "Pick up. It's going to take half an hour. Pick up." He picked up. Lena slid off his lap. She went to the kitchen. She made herself a cup of tea with the old kettle and the ceramic mug that said "World's Okayest Brother" on it. She went to the window of the kitchen and looked at the geranium and thought, "How are you still alive?" Then she went back out to the living room. Adrian was on the couch. He was talking to his mother. It was a face she was going to see a lot of, she realized. It was the face of a man on the phone with someone he loved, not hiding anything, not guarding anything. It was a face she had never seen at the office. He said, "Mom, she's right here." Pause. "Mom, yes, I'm going to put her on." He looked up. He held out the phone. Lena stared at it. "She wants to say hi," he said. Lena's heart was in her mouth. She had never talked to a mother on the phone because mothers did not call her. Friends' mothers had not been her mothers. She had not done this. She had, at 31, not done this. She took the phone. "Hi." "Sweetheart." The voice on the other end was warm. It was older. It was a little tired. It had a faint New York accent under decades of Connecticut. "Hi, Mrs. Vale." "Elaine." "Elaine, hi. Are you okay, honey?" I'm good. I'm okay." "Adrian tells me you've had a very strange 24 hours. Yes, it has been very strange. Do you need anything?" I'm asking because I can bring it." "Mrs. Elaine, I'm okay. We just had breakfast." "Where?" "The Blue Owl, on 8th. "Oh, the Blue Owl. Norma?" "Norma was there. She's been there 30 years. She's a doll. She gives good pancakes." "She gave good pancakes. I'm coming into the city tomorrow, if the road's open. I would like to come over to Adrian's, just for an hour. I don't want to impose. I know Adrian just told me a lot of things very fast, and I know you probably don't. You probably don't know me from a hole in the wall, and I don't want to march into your life and scare the daylights out of you. I will come for an hour. If you don't want to meet me, tell me now, and I will come another time. I am very good at being told no. Adrian's been telling me no for 38 years. Lena started laughing. "Elaine, yes, honey. I would like to meet you tomorrow. A pause, then quieter. Okay, sweetheart, okay, okay. Her voice cracked once. Lena pressed the phone against her ear and she closed her eyes. I don't have a mother, Elaine. Oh, honey. I just want you to know that. I don't want you to find out later. I don't have a mother. I don't have a family, so I might be bad at this. I might. I don't know how to do this. I will try, but I might be bad. There was a long silence on the other end. Lena had her eyes closed, and she could hear Elaine Vale breathing. Sweetheart. Yes, I'm going to tell you something. You don't have to say anything. You can just listen, okay? Okay. I have been a mother for 40 years. I have been a mother to a son who is impossible, and 2 daughters who make me tired just thinking about them. I have been a mother to a dog who was worse than all 3 of them combined. I am very experienced at being a mother. Do you understand what I am telling you? Yes. You're not going to be bad at this. I'm going to be good enough at this for both of us, okay? Okay. And if you don't want a mother, that is fine. I am not going to push. I am a pushy woman, but I am not a stupid one. But if you do want one, even a little bit, even someday, you have one. Starting now. That is not a performance. That is not me being nice because my son brought you home. That is me telling you the truth, okay? Lena could not speak. Okay, sweetheart. Okay. Good girl. Now put my son back on the phone. Lena passed the phone back. Adrian took it. He was looking at her. She could not look at him. She got up. She walked to the window. She pressed her forehead against the glass. Over her shoulder, behind her, she heard him say, quietly, Yes, Mom. I know. Yes. Tomorrow. Yes. I love you too. He hung up. He came up behind her at the window. He didn't touch her. Lena, I'm okay. Okay. I'm okay. I just need a minute. Take a minute. She took a minute. She took several. He stood 3 feet behind her and he did not touch her, and she stared at the Hudson, at a tugboat going north through the ice, at the way the light was changing as the clouds broke up, and she understood finally in a slow way that what had started last night at 10:17 p.m. with the words, Are you awake? Was not going to end, that it had not been a midnight thing, that it had not been a one-night thing, that there was a woman named Elaine in Darien packing a bag to drive into Manhattan through a blizzard to meet her tomorrow, that there were 2 sisters in Park Slope who had known her name for a year, that there was a driver named Luis who had said, I told him for a year, that there was a man behind her in a gray sweater who had, on a phone call to his oldest friend, used the word Mary as if it had not surprised him, that she was not alone, that she was not going to be alone, not tonight, not tomorrow, not for the foreseeable future, unless she chose it, which she was not going to, that she had forgotten how to be something other than alone, but she was going to learn. She turned around. He was standing there with his hands in his pockets, looking like a man who was waiting to be told what he could do next. She said, Adrian, yes, I want to stay tonight. Okay. On the couch. Okay. And I want to go see your mother tomorrow. Okay. And I want you to tell that gossip website to go screw itself. He grinned. It was the first full grin she had seen from him in 12 hours, and it was something. I can arrange that. Arrange it. I'll make a call. Make a call. He made the call. He stepped into the kitchen. His voice got low and measured and lawyerly, and she caught half of it and lost the other half, and she sat back down on the couch, and she picked up his splayed novel, and she turned it right side up, and she started reading from page 1, because she was going to borrow it. She was going to read it. She was going to bring it back on some Sunday when she came over for dinner, and the woman in the book was going to go to the lighthouse. And Lena Carter was going to sit on a 22nd floor couch on Park Avenue and read about it, and she was going to be okay. She was going to actually be okay. For the first time in a very long time, possibly ever. Outside the window, the tugboat moved through the ice, slow, sure, pushing water aside. The light got warmer. Somewhere down the hall, Adrian laughed at something the person on the other end of the phone said, and the sound carried through the apartment and into Lena's chest and settled there. And she did not know, yet, what was going to happen in 3 days or 3 weeks or 3 months. But she knew what was going to happen in an hour, They were going to order pizza from a place he liked on 81st Street, and they were going to eat it out of the box on the coffee table. And he was going to argue with her about the couch again and lose again. And she was going to sleep on his couch under a blanket that smelled like him. And in the morning, if the roads opened, a woman named Elaine was going to drive in from Darien, and Lena was going to meet a mother for the first time in her life. She kept reading. The light got warmer. The snow on the window started to melt. The snow on the window finished melting sometime around 2 in the afternoon, and by 3 the sky over the Hudson had gone that particular kind of pale blue that only happened after a big storm, like the city had exhaled. Adrian ordered the pizza. It came in 40 minutes instead of the promised 20 because the delivery guy had been stuck on 79th and 3rd behind a plow. When it arrived, Adrian overtipped in a way that Lena noticed and decided not to mention, and they ate it on the coffee table like he had said they would, out of the box, and they argued about the couch, and she won, which she was going to give him credit for later. He had let her win in a way that was not condescending, which was a thing she was going to realize much later that she had been looking for in a man her entire adult life without knowing it. She slept on his couch that night. He slept in his bed. She knew this because at 3 in the morning she woke up for no reason she could name, the way people do in unfamiliar apartments. And she got up to use the bathroom, and she padded down the hallway past his bedroom door, and she heard him snoring. Not loud, just the snoring of a person who had finally gotten to rest. And she stood in the hallway in her pajamas in the dark and listened to Adrian Vale snore, and she thought, so that's what he sounds like. Good. That's good. I'm glad I know now. And she went to the bathroom and she came back, and she slept until 9:30 in the morning. Elaine came at 11. The roads had opened just after dawn. Elaine Vale drove herself into the city in a Subaru Outback that had a dent in the back bumper and a bumper sticker from a botanical garden in Stamford. And she parked, improbably, in a legal spot right in front of Adrian's building, because that was the kind of thing that happened to women like Elaine Vale. Gerald gave her his full two-handed hello. Adrian met her at the elevator and hugged her for longer than Lena had ever seen a grown man hug his mother. A full 20 seconds, his face in her shoulder. And then he led her into the apartment, and Lena stood up from the couch with her hands cold. And a woman in a cream-colored sweater and jeans, with gray at her temples and laugh lines around her eyes, crossed the living room in 3 strides and said, "There you are," and hugged her. That was it. Lena had been preparing for 22 hours for a handshake, maybe a polite half-hug, maybe an assessing look. She had not been preparing for a hug like that. Elaine smelled like a woman, like actual perfume and mild soap and a little bit of coffee. And her arms were warm, and she held on for 4 seconds, and then she pulled back, and she held Lena by both shoulders, and she looked at her for a long moment, and her eyes filled up, and she said, "Oh, honey, you are so much prettier than he said." Mom, Adrian, Mom, leave her alone. I'm not bothering her. You are bothering her. Lena, am I bothering you? No, Mrs. Elaine, no. Good. I brought cookies. I brought them because I didn't know what else to bring. They're in the car. Adrian, go get them. He went. The door closed behind him. Elaine and Lena stood in the middle of the living room alone. Lena's heart was pounding. Elaine was still holding her shoulders. Sweetheart, yes, I'm going to let go of you now. Okay. Elaine let go. She stepped back. She took off her coat and laid it over the back of the couch. She sat down in the dented cushion, Adrian's cushion, like she had been sitting there for 30 years, which she probably had. She patted the cushion next to her. Come here. Lena came. Elaine took her hand. Not in a weird way. Not in a theatrical way. Just took it. The way a woman takes another woman's hand in a waiting room at a hospital when they are about to talk about something hard. We're not going to talk about anything you don't want to talk about, Elaine said. I want that on the table. Okay. I have 3 questions. Okay. The first is, are you okay? Really, Adrian has a tendency to move like a freight train when he makes a decision, and I want to make sure that you are in this because you want to be and not because he ran you over. Lena almost laughed. He didn't run me over, Elaine. You sure? I asked him to come. He asked first, but I asked him to come last night. He wasn't going to. Elaine's eyes narrowed a little. He wasn't going to. He told me to forget he'd said anything. I told him to come anyway. Good for you. Yeah. Second question. Do you eat meat? Lena blinked. Yes. Good. I am cooking Sunday. Every Sunday. The girls come. You are coming. I need to know what to make. I can make a vegetarian thing. I will. But if you eat meat, I will make the lasagna my own grandmother made, and I will make the garlic bread that Joe is embarrassing about in public. I eat meat. Excellent. Third question. Okay. Elaine paused. Are your parents alive? Lena took a breath. I don't know who my father is. My mother is somewhere. I haven't seen her since I was 5. She signed away her rights. She had her reasons. I don't have a relationship with her. Okay, honey. I just wanted you to know. I know. Adrian told me. I'm asking because I wanted you to tell me. Because I'm not going to pretend I don't know. And I'm not going to not ask. And I'm not going to make you feel like you have to explain. I just wanted to give you a chance to tell me anything you want me to know before we go any further. That's all? That's all? That's all I have to tell you. Okay. I had some good foster parents for a while. A woman named Mrs. Mendez. She was nice to me. She taught arts and crafts, and she hugged me at the end of every class. What happened to her? I got moved when I was 10. Elaine's face did something complicated. Do you know where she is now? No. Do you want to know? Lena looked at her. Maybe, she said. Someday. I don't know. I never looked. I was afraid of what I'd find. Okay? Whenever you want to. You don't have to. Just whenever you want to. Okay? I'm not going to be her, honey. I'm not trying to be. I am not here to replace anyone. I am here to be an extra person. Do you understand? I am here to be a person who knows your name. Okay. That's all. Okay. Adrian came back in with the cookies in a round tin, and Elaine said cheerfully, We're done being heavy. Come here and sit down. Tell me about this pizza box you left on my couch. That was how Elaine Vale came into Lena Carter's life. She came through a front door with a tin of cookies, and she said, There you are. And she sat on a couch and asked 3 questions, and then she made small talk about a pizza box until Adrian's hand stopped shaking. And when she left at 2 in the afternoon, after an hour that was the easiest hour of Lena's life, she hugged Lena again and whispered in her ear, Welcome, sweetheart. And she walked to the elevator with her coat over her arm, and Gerald took her down. Adrian closed the door. He turned around. He looked at Lena. She was crying. He said, Oh, no. Adrian, oh, no. What did she say? What did she... It's good. It's good. It's good. She's just what I thought she was going to be. She's exactly what I thought. Adrian, I was so scared. I know. She called me honey. That is her word. She calls the mailman honey. Lena started laughing. She was laughing and crying, and she sat down on the couch and put her face in the cushion, and Adrian stood in the middle of the room and watched her, not knowing whether to come closer or give her space, because he was 38 years old, and he had not been through this before any more than she had. The rest of that week came fast. On the 2nd of January, a Thursday, Adrian called Ben Wachtel back at 7 in the morning. By 9, he had a meeting with Carol in HR. By noon, he had disclosed the relationship in writing to the head of HR and to the chief operating officer and to 2 board members with a memo that Ben had helped him draft at 2 in the morning on New Year's night. The memo said, in short, I am in a relationship with Lena Carter, who has worked as my executive assistant for 2 years and 3 months. I am asking that she be transferred to the strategic operations role under Maya Torres, which has been open since September. I am recusing myself from any performance review, compensation decision, or personnel action regarding Ms. Carter going forward. I am fully prepared to take any disciplinary steps the firm deems appropriate. Carol, who had been in HR for 22 years and had seen every single version of this kind of thing, read the memo twice. She set it down on her desk. She looked across at Adrian. Mr. Vale. Yes. In 22 years, I have never, not once, had a man in your chair hand me this particular piece of paper before somebody in my department had to go find him. I understand. You came to me first. I did. Why? Because it is the right way to do it, and because I do not want her. He stopped. He took a breath. Because I do not want her spending one day looking over her shoulder wondering when the other shoe is going to drop. I want the shoe dropped, now, by us, on our terms. I want everything on paper. I want her walking in on Monday knowing exactly where she stands. Carol nodded once, slow. Okay? Okay? Okay, Mr. Vale, let's talk about the rest of the week. The rest of the week was meetings. It was Maya Torres who hugged her, in the hallway on Friday afternoon when Lena came in to sign the transfer paperwork and said, I have been trying to poach you for 14 months. I am thrilled that whatever happened happened. Welcome to my team. It was the 15% raise. It was an office with a door, 3 floors down from where Adrian worked. It was a short, brisk conversation with Carol in HR, at which Lena signed a document acknowledging the relationship and acknowledging that she understood she had the right to report at any time any behavior by Mr. Vale that made her uncomfortable, and that reporting such behavior would in no way affect her employment, and that she understood this and that she was not being coerced, and that she was entering this relationship of her own free will. Lena signed it. She read every word. She signed it. Carol slid the signed copy across the desk and put it in a folder and said, All right, you're free to go. Congratulations on the new role. That's it? That's it, Miss Carter. It's just, you were expecting me to ask you invasive questions. I've been doing this a long time. If you wanted to tell me anything, you'd be telling me. You're not, so I'm not going to ask. Welcome to Strategic Ops. Lena walked out of the HR office on the 39th floor, and she stood in the hallway for a minute with her hands shaking, and she realized that the only person at the firm who was going to make the next 6 months of her life hard was not going to be HR. HR had done its job. HR had given them a blueprint. The next 6 months were going to be hard because people were people, and people talked, and the gossip column had already run the photo, and somebody on Tuesday in the break room was going to refuse to make eye contact with her, and somebody on Wednesday in the elevator was going to stop a conversation when she stepped in, and somebody on Thursday at a happy hour she wasn't invited to was going to say things about her that she would not hear for another 3 weeks. That was going to happen. Adrian had warned her. She had agreed to it. The first rough day was a Wednesday in mid-January. She was coming out of a bathroom on the 38th floor, which she should not even have been on anymore. She had been up there to drop off a file for Maya, who had asked her to hand-deliver a signed agreement to a senior partner. And as she stepped out, she heard 2 women at the sinks. One was saying, and I'm just saying, come on, she was his secretary. The other, executive assistant. Same thing. Not really. Whatever, you know what I mean. It's gross. It's just gross. There's a reason there are rules about this. They followed the rules, Kim. They followed them after he was already sleeping with her. You don't know that. Come on, Janine. Lena turned around and walked back into the bathroom. She pushed open the stall door. Kim Foley, from marketing, was at the sink with her mascara in her hand, and Janine Kapoor, from legal, was next to her, and they both saw Lena in the mirror at the same time. And Kim's mouth actually dropped open a little, and her hand froze halfway to her eye with the mascara wand still in it. Lena walked past them to the sink. She washed her hands. She dried them on a paper towel. She threw the paper towel in the trash. She looked at Kim in the mirror. Kim, Lena, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. What? I said, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. You think what you think. I'm not going to change your mind in a bathroom on a Wednesday. But I'm going to tell you 2 things. 1, he was not sleeping with me before. He walked across town in a snowstorm on New Year's Eve, and I opened my door and he told me out loud that he had been in love with me for 2 years, and I told him I had been in love with him for 2 years, and we have been trying to do it right ever since. 1 kiss on my couch before midnight, and he slept on it alone, and we told HR on the 2nd, not a day later, not an hour later. And 2, Kim had the mascara wand pointed down now. She looked like she was going to cry. Janine was staring at the counter. 2, Lena said. If it had been you. What? If it had been you, Kim. If Adrian Vale had walked up to your desk a year ago and smiled at you a certain way and asked you to dinner, you would have gone. I love you. I've known you for 2 years. You would have gone. And everybody in this building would have been happy for you because you're blonde and you're pretty and your father plays tennis with the chairman. And I'm not blonde and I'm not pretty in that way and I don't have a father. And I want you to ask yourself, the next time you're in the bathroom talking about me, what the real thing is. The real thing under the gross thing, okay? Kim was not moving. Lena said, "Have a nice afternoon, Kim. Hi, Janine." And she walked out of the bathroom. She got 3 feet down the hallway and she had to lean against the wall because her legs were shaking. She stood there for a full 30 seconds with her eyes closed, breathing. And when she opened her eyes, Maya Torres was standing at the end of the hallway with a cup of coffee in her hand. And Maya had seen her come out of the bathroom. And Maya had seen her stop against the wall. And Maya walked over and stood in front of her and said, "Elevator." "What?" "Elevator. Now. We're going to lunch. I don't care if you've eaten. Come with me." Maya took her to a sushi place on 55th Street and she ordered them both udon. And she told Lena across the table, "I have had that bathroom conversation about me 3 times in my life. 3 times, at 3 different firms. Once in the year 2006, once in the year 2012, once in the year 2019. I'm going to tell you the same thing that the woman who took me to lunch in 2006 told me, which is, this will pass, but it will pass slower than you think. And in the meantime, you will do your job very, very well, because that is the only thing that has ever shut people like Kim Foley up. You got that?" I got that. "Good, eat." Lena ate. It did pass. It passed slower than she wanted it to. It was February before the elevator conversation stopped stopping when she got in. It was March before Kim Foley apologized, awkwardly, in the parking garage. And Lena accepted it and did not particularly ever trust her again, but decided to stop caring. It was April before Lena sat down at a firm retreat at a table of people she did not know, and nobody did a double take when she said her name. It was June before she was just Lena from Strategic Ops, Maya's number 2, the one who had caught the 7-figure error in the Henderson contract, the one who made a slide deck that made the chairman nod 3 times in a row. The tabloid photograph got retracted. That was Adrian. His lawyer wrote a very patient, very long letter to the gossip website explaining exactly which of their statements about Adrian were defamatory, and the website pulled the piece in a week and issued a quiet retraction. And by February, nobody remembered the photo except the people at the firm. And by May, nobody at the firm remembered it either. But those were the facts. The facts were not the story. The story was the Sundays. The story was the first Sunday of February, when Lena and Adrian drove out to Darien in Lewis's Suburban. Luis had taken the day off and let Adrian borrow the car, and Adrian drove, which Lena had not known he could do, and he drove it badly, lane changes a little too slow, brake a little too hard, and she had laughed at him the whole way up I-95, and he had laughed back. Elaine met them at the door of a blue shingled house with a wraparound porch, and Joe came out behind her already talking a mile a minute, and Kate came out behind Joe carrying a glass of red wine, and Joe looked at Lena and said, "Oh, finally," and hugged her for a full 12 seconds, and Kate hugged her after and said, "You look tired. Are you eating? I have soup." They ate for 3 hours. The lasagna was real. The garlic bread made Joe so happy that she hummed a little bit between bites. Kate asked Lena about her job in strategic ops and listened, really listened, like she was going to remember later, like there would be a quiz. Elaine poured wine in a way that was generous and unhurried. Adrian sat next to Lena and their shoulders touched for 3 hours. And he was, she watched it happen, a different man in his mother's kitchen than he was in any other room in the world. His voice was lower. His hands were looser. He laughed at things his sisters said that would not have been funny from anyone else. He was 38 years old, and he was somebody's little brother and somebody's only son, and Lena had not ever seen anybody be that before, up close. After dinner, Kate put on music in the living room, and Joe pulled Lena up by both hands and said, "We are going to dance." And Lena said, "Oh, I'm not. I don't." And Joe said, "Dance with me anyway. You are a family member now. This is the rule." And Lena danced in a cream-colored living room in Darien, Connecticut, on a Sunday night in February, to a song she did not know, with a woman she had known for 6 weeks who loved her without question. Later, at 10 o'clock, she stood at the kitchen sink helping Elaine wash dishes. Adrian was outside on the porch talking to Kate. Joe had gone upstairs to change out of her heels. It was just Elaine and Lena, elbow deep in warm water, the window over the sink fogging from the heat. Honey. Yes. Can I ask you something? Of course. Adrian told me about Mrs. Mendez. Lena stopped scrubbing the plate she was scrubbing. He didn't tell me to talk to you about it. He told me because he cries about it a little, which you may not know. He told me because he has been crying about it for a month and he didn't know what to do with it. I'm not bringing it up to hurt you. Okay, I wanted to tell you that if you ever want to look, I have a friend. She works at the state. She finds people. She's good. She does it quiet. She doesn't make a fuss. If you ever want to look for Mrs. Mendez or the others or any of them, you have someone you can ask. That's all I wanted to say. Lena set the plate down. She wiped her hands on a dish towel. She said, Elaine. Yes, honey. Yes. Yes? Yes, I want to look. I didn't know I wanted to until just now. I want to look for Mrs. Mendez. I want to know if she's still alive. Elaine nodded. She did not hug her. She did not make it a thing. She said, Okay, I'll have my friend call you Tuesday. Mrs. Mendez was in San Antonio. She was 71 years old. She was alive. She had retired from teaching 15 years ago. She had 2 grown sons and 4 grandchildren. Elaine's friend found her in 3 weeks. Lena got a phone call on a Thursday in March and wrote down a phone number on a sticky note at her desk and stared at it for the rest of the afternoon. She called on a Saturday morning. She sat on Adrian's couch. He sat in the kitchen with the door closed because she had asked him to, because she needed privacy for this without needing him to be gone. She dialed. The phone rang 4 times. A woman picked up. Hello? Lena could not speak for a second. Then she said, Is this Mrs. Mendez? Rosa Mendez? Yes. Who is this? My name is Lena. Lena Carter. You taught me when I was in arts and crafts at the center in Poughkeepsie when I was 9. I know you probably don't. There was a silence, a long one. Then, Mija. Lena made a sound like a person being hit. Lena, Mija, oh, sweet girl, you found me. I have thought of you. I have prayed for you. Oh, sweet girl, you are alive. Where are you, Mija? Where are you? I'm in New York. I'm okay. I'm good. I'm okay. Tell me everything. Lena told her. She told her for 90 minutes. She told her about aging out, and about the jobs, and about the apartment, and about Adrian, and about Elaine, and about Joe and Kate, and about the job in strategic ops, and about Mrs. Mendez herself, about the star, about the popsicle stick star, about how it was on her Christmas tree every year since she was 9, because Mrs. Mendez had said, at the end of that class, You are such a good girl, Mija. And Lena had carried that sentence in her chest for 22 years. Mrs. Mendez cried. Lena cried. They made a plan for Lena to fly to San Antonio in May. Adrian bought the ticket. He did not make it a thing. He handed her the printed confirmation one morning in April, over coffee, and said, You leave on the 15th. Luis will take you to JFK. She's coming to pick you up at the airport. She asked. That was it. Lena flew to San Antonio on May 15th. Mrs. Mendez, smaller than she remembered, her hair white now, her hands soft and wrinkled, met her at arrivals, and Lena walked through the crowd and saw her and started crying from 50 feet away. And Mrs. Mendez opened her arms without moving, and Lena walked into them, and she stood there for a long time in the middle of the baggage claim, while strangers walked around them with suitcases, and Mrs. Mendez rocked her, the way you rock a child, and said, Mija, 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 over and over again, and Lena understood finally that there were some holes in a person that never closed completely, but there were other people in the world whose arms fit in them, and you took it, you took what was offered. She came back to New York with a photograph in her purse. Mrs. Mendez at the kitchen table with a coffee cup. Lena put it on Adrian's fridge next to the photo of her and Monica at the diner, and Adrian walked into the kitchen and saw it and didn't say anything. He just put his hand flat against the fridge next to it for a second, like a benediction, and went to make tea. Things were going to keep happening. The gossip column came back once, in August, because the head of a different firm saw Adrian and Lena at a restaurant on the Upper West Side and commented on it to the wrong person at a dinner. The column ran a paragraph. This time Lena saw it before Adrian did, and she showed it to him, and he read it, and he said, "Do you want me to call the lawyer again?" And she said, "No, let them talk. I don't care anymore. Do you care?" And he said, "I have not cared in months." And they didn't call the lawyer, and the column ran its paragraph, and nothing happened. Nothing. Her phone didn't blow up. Maya didn't call her into a meeting. HR didn't put a new piece of paper in front of her. The world kept turning. It turned out, and this was something Lena was going to carry for the rest of her life, that once you stopped being afraid of people talking about you, people could not hurt you with what they said. There was a fight. In September, in Adrian's kitchen, about something small. About a trip to Vermont that she wanted to take, and he said he couldn't take off for. And she said he could, and he was using work as an excuse. And he said he wasn't, and she said he was. And it turned, the way fights turn, into something that was not about Vermont. It was about the way he still, after 9 months, sometimes worked at his phone at dinner. It was about the way she, after 9 months, still sometimes withdrew when she was upset instead of saying she was upset. She said, "You are doing the thing your mother told me you would do." He said, "What thing?" "You are going quiet." "Lena, I am not going quiet. I am answering an email from Tokyo. It is, you said you would work on it. I am working on it." "Are you?" Long silence. He put the phone down. "I'm sorry." "Okay. I am. I'm sorry. I don't want to be the kind of man who does this. I don't want to be the kind of woman who disappears in fights. We both have stuff, Adrian. We're both going to have to keep working on it." "I know. I'm not going to leave." "I know." "Say it." "I know you're not going to leave." "Say it to me." "I'm not going to leave, Lena. I'm not. "Okay." They went to Vermont. He left his phone in a drawer in the cabin. She saw him, one morning at a diner in a town called Manchester, look across at her over a plate of pancakes at 9:30 a.m. in a flannel shirt he had bought at a thrift store for $6 the day before. And she thought, "Oh, this is my life. This is my life now." He asked her to marry him in October. It was not a huge thing. He did not rent out a restaurant. He did not hire a plane. She would have murdered him if he had. It was a Saturday night, and they were in her apartment. She had not given up 4B. She was not going to, not yet, not for a while. She was going to keep it because it was hers, and she had paid for it, and the tiny Christmas tree lived there. And she had been cooking, badly, a pasta dish from one of his cookbooks. And she had burned a pan, and he had sat down at her tiny kitchen table with the ring box in his hand, and he had said, "Lena, shek gi pon." She had turned around with a wooden spoon in her hand. "Adrian, the pan is—" "Lena, put down the spoon." She had put down the spoon. He had not gotten on a knee. He had known better. He had sat at her tiny kitchen table in a gray sweater, with the pan smoking behind her on the stove, and he had set the box on the table and flipped it open. And the ring inside was a small one, a thin band with a single stone, which she was later going to find out had been his grandmother's, Elaine's mother's. And Elaine had given it to him at Christmas last year, saying, "When you know, you know." He said, "Lena, I don't have a speech. I rehearsed one a long time ago, and I forgot it. I love you. I am going to love you until I die. I want to marry you, please. Will you marry me?" She had said, "Yes." He had said, "Okay." She had said, "Okay." The pan had kept smoking. They had burned the pasta. They had eaten toast. They were married on a Saturday in December, 11 months and 16 days after the night he had knocked on her door. It was small. It was in Elaine's living room in Darien because Lena had said she did not want a venue. She did not know what to do in a venue. She wanted a living room. There were 28 people. Joe cried. Kate gave a toast that made everyone laugh. Maya Torres came. Ben Wachtel came and got drunk and hugged Adrian for too long. Luis came in a new suit with his wife Marina, who was a woman Lena adored on sight, a woman who pinched Adrian's cheek and called him Nino. Norma from the Blue Owl came because Lena had invited her, and Norma cried harder than anyone, including Mrs. Mendez, who had flown up from San Antonio and walked Lena from the kitchen to the living room arch where Adrian stood waiting in a dark blue suit, not a tuxedo, never a tuxedo, not after January. Lena wore a cream-colored dress and her hair down. She held a small bouquet that Joe had tied together with a ribbon 30 minutes before the ceremony. She walked across the rug that she and Adrian had danced on in February, and she reached Adrian, and the officiant, a kind woman with short hair who had known Elaine for 30 years, began to speak, and Lena could not hear a word of it because she was looking at Adrian and Adrian was looking at her, and the room was full. The room was full of every single person who had, against every expectation Lena Carter had ever had of her own life, decided to love her. They said yes to each other. They kissed. Joe yelled finally so loudly the neighbors probably heard. Lena cried the kind of crying that was not even really crying anymore. It was just the body telling the truth, and Adrian wiped her face with his thumb, and she wiped his, and Elaine from the front row whispered, "Look at them," to Kate, and Kate whispered back, "I see them, Mom." A year later, on December 31st, Lena Vale, she had taken his name, not because she had to, because she had wanted one of her own for 32 years, sat on the dented cushion of the couch in the Park Avenue apartment. It was 11:58 p.m. The 22nd floor window looked out on a version of the Hudson she knew now, which had become hers, slow and silver through ice in January and wide and blue in August. Adrian sat on the rug at her feet. Between them, on the rug, on a blanket, was their 8-week-old daughter, who was named Rosa, which had been Lena's first and only idea, which Adrian had said yes to before she had even finished saying the name. Rosa was asleep. The television was on mute. Ryan Seacrest was doing the thing he did. Adrian looked up at her. 10, he said. Adrian, don't count. 9. Adrian. 8. Adrian, I swear, if you count down the 7. And you wake up the baby? 6. I am going to, 5. Push you. 4. Off this couch. 3. He took her hand. She shook her head at him. She was laughing. 2. She squeezed his hand. 1. Outside, the city roared. Somewhere below them, 22 floors down, a crowd on a corner let off a horn. Somewhere in Connecticut, Elaine Vale was standing at her back door in her robe, watching fireworks over the sound. Somewhere in Park Slope, Joe was on a rooftop with a sparkler, and Kate was yelling at her not to burn her own hair off. Somewhere in San Antonio, Rosa Mendez was in bed with a book because she had never stayed up for the ball drop in her life, and she was not going to start at 73. Adrian whispered, "Happy New Year, Lena." She looked down at him, at her husband, who was tired and 39 years old and imperfect, who worked too late sometimes, who went quiet when he was scared, who had, 3 weeks ago, left a wet bath towel on the bedroom floor for 2 days in a row. At her daughter, who was tiny and red-faced and asleep with one hand up by her ear. At the apartment, with the books, with the dented cushion, with the geranium on the kitchen windowsill that was, inexplicably, still alive. She thought about the woman who had sat on a kitchen floor 2 years ago with a Salisbury steak in the trash can and a $12 bottle of champagne in the freezer. The woman who had been so sure that she was going to be alone at midnight, who had accepted it, who had walked right up to the edge of a lifetime of it. She thought about what she would tell that woman, if she could. She thought, "You will open the door." She thought, "You will open the door, and the world will come in, and it will not be smooth, and it will not be easy, and not everybody will love you, but enough people will love you. Enough will, and you will love them back." She thought, "Not every lonely year ends with a knock, but this one did, and once it did, it was enough for all of them." Adrian squeezed her hand. "Lena." "Yeah. What are you thinking?" She looked at him. She looked at Rosa. She looked at the snow starting up again outside the window. She looked at her life, the one she had not believed in, the one that had, against every expectation, arrived. I'm thinking I'm glad you knocked, she said. He kissed her hand. I'm glad you opened the door. She closed her eyes. She leaned back on the couch. Somewhere downstairs, a neighbor was playing music, the bass thumping up through the floor. Outside, the city was still roaring. Rosa stirred and settled. The radiator in the corner of the living room made a sound that Lena did not hear anymore, because she had stopped hearing it months ago, because that was what happened when a place became home. The noises went from being the sound of loneliness to the sound of company, to the sound, finally, of a life. And somewhere, on every floor of every building in every city, all over the country, all over the world, 1,000 other people were sitting alone in kitchens at 11:59, staring at phones that were not lighting up, thinking that tonight was going to end the way every other one had ended. And Lena Vale, who had once been one of them, hoped with her whole heart that for at least one of them, tonight was the night the knock came. Because sometimes it did. Sometimes the knock came. And when it did, you opened the door.